Security dragged my dad out of my office. Then he screamed one sentence that changed everything. Security had my father by both arms, one guard on each side, guiding him toward the elevator as if he were just another angry customer who wouldn't leave. Except he wasn't a customer. He was my dad. His dress shoes scraped across the marble lobby floor. His expensive coat hung open like he'd forgotten how to wear dignity. His face was the color of a stop sign, and his eyes were locked on mine with a fury that looked almost hungry. "You're my son, Ethan," he shouted, voice cracking with rage and humiliation. "You OWE us." The sound ricocheted down the hallway and punched straight into the quiet of my office. Phone stopped ringing. My receptionist froze mid-step. A client in the waiting area looked up from her clipboard like she'd just walked into a scene from someone else's life. And me? I stood behind a glass door, holding a framed photo of my daughter in my hands like it was a shield. Because the last time I asked my father for help, my child was in a hospital bed, struggling to breathe, and he chose the family's reputation over her lungs. So no, I didn't know him anything. But if you want to understand how a man becomes the kind of person who lets his own father get escorted out by security, you have to rewind to the day I sat at my parents' dining table in Jefferson Park and watched love turn into shame. In my house, Sundays weren't really about family. They were about the appearance of family. My mother could turn a cheap table into something that looked like a magazine spread. Fruit sliced into perfect crescents, napkins folded into crisp triangles, chopsticks aligned like soldiers. The message was always the same. We are a good family. Do not ruin the picture. My father sat upright like he had discipline installed in his spine. He was Korean American, raised by parents who believed feelings were a luxury and success was the only proof you deserved oxygen. He worked in facilities management for a downtown office building and talked about responsibility like it was a religion. My sister Hannah, 2 years older than me, sat with her phone angled just enough to pretend she was present. My younger brother Caleb chewed loudly like it was a protest. And next to me, hands folded in her lap, breathing carefully like she was stepping on a thin ice, was my girlfriend, Imani Brooks. Black, Southside born and raised, the kind of woman whose calm felt like a warm blanket in a world that never stops yelling. She didn't perform softness. She simply had it, quiet strength, steady eyes, a way of making chaos settle without ever raising her voice. Which was good, because she was pregnant. 12 weeks. We'd waited until the first ultrasound, until the doctor said everything looked normal, until Imani stopped throwing up every morning and could finally eat without wincing. We'd rehearsed the conversation in my car a dozen times. We'd rehearsed it in the kitchen while washing dishes. We'd rehearsed it in bed with my hand resting over her stomach, both of us pretending we weren't terrified. I clear my throat. "Mom, Dad, there's something we need to tell you." My mother's smile paused. Just a flicker, like her brain had clocked the seriousness in my tone. Imani's fingers found mine under the table. "We're expecting," I said. "Imani's pregnant." The room didn't explode. It emptied. My mother blinked slowly like her mind was buffering. My father's jaw tightened so hard I actually heard it click. Hannah finally looked up. Her eyes moved from Imani's face to her belly, like she was inspecting damage. My father spoke first. "How long have you been doing this?" Doing this. Not loving. Not building. Not planning. Doing this like we'd been caught committing a crime. Imani's voice stayed level. 12 weeks. My mother's hand flew to her chest like she'd been punched. 12 weeks, she repeated like it was a bad smell. "We wanted to be sure first," I said. "We wanted to." "You're 22, my father cut in. "And not married," my mother added, eyes pinning Imani like she'd brought smoke into the house. Imani didn't flinch. "We planned to." "No," my mom snapped too fast. "No, don't say it like it's reasonable," Caleb muttered. "Bro, seriously?" I felt heat climb my neck. "Seriously what?" "I'm going to be a dad." My father stood, so suddenly his chair scraped hard against the floor. "You're going to ruin your life," he said, voice low and final. "And you are going to ruin us." Imani's fingers tightened under the table. I could feel her trying not to react, to stay polite, to stay composed, to not give them anything they could call attitude. My mother leaned forward, eyes sharp with calculation. The neighbors, she whispered. The church. Everyone will talk. I stared at her. You're worried about talk? My mother snapped her gaze to me. You don't understand what it means to have people watching your family. Imani spoke softly. Mrs. Park, I'm not here to shame anyone. Ethan and I love each other. My father looked at her like she'd spoken out of turn in a courtroom. I don't know what you are, he said, but I know what you've done. That sentence landed like a slap. I felt something in me shift, like a door quietly locking. They weren't hearing baby. They were hearing scandal. And in my family, scandals didn't get loved. They got erased. After that Sunday, my family didn't scream at me again. They punished me with silence. If I walked into the kitchen, my mom would suddenly remember laundry. If I asked my dad a question, he'd answer with one-word grunts that meant, you're not worth full sentences. When I texted ultrasound photos, my mother left them on read. When I called my father, it went straight to voicemail every time. I told myself, they need time. Then Hannah posted a photo on Instagram from a family dinner at a Korean barbecue place in Niles. My parents, Hannah, Caleb, cousins, all smiling, all posing like nothing had happened. Caption: family is everything. Imani stared at the photo on my phone for a long time without blinking. You weren't invited, she said quietly. Not a question. I swallowed. No. She nodded slowly like she'd expected that answer. And that hurt worse than the exclusion, because it meant she'd already accepted what I was still resisting. My family had chosen their reputation over my reality. A week later, my mom called me. My heart jumped, stupidly hopeful. But it wasn't her voice on the other end. It was Pastor Kim. Ethan, he said warmly, like we were old friends. Your parents are very worried about you. I stood in the parking lot outside my warehouse job near O'Hare, wind cutting through my hoodie, and stared at the phone like it had turned into something else. Worry, I repeated. They won't even talk to me. He gave a gentle chuckle, the kind adults use when they think you're childish. Sometimes parents show concern differently, he said. But you need to think about consequences, about doing things the right way. By right way, I said, voice tightening. You mean erasing my girlfriend and our baby? There was a pause. Ethan, he said carefully, your family has a reputation in the community. There was again. Reputation. Not love. Not support. Not safety. Image. I hung up. And as the cold Chicago wind slapped my face, it hit me. They'd turned my life into a community problem. A PR issue. A stain they needed to scrub out. My parents didn't kick me out. They didn't have to. Living in that house started feeling like breathing through a wet towel. One night, I heard my dad on the phone in the living room. He didn't know I was on the stairs. I told him we can't support this, he said. He made his choice. We're not paying for his mistake. Mistake. That word followed me into my sleep. So I moved. Imani and I found a tiny apartment in Albany Park above a bakery that smelled like cinnamon and heat. The radiator banged like a dying animal. The walls were thin enough to hear our upstairs neighbor sneeze. The brown line rattled the windows like it was trying to get inside. But it was ours. The first night, we ate Thai takeout on the floor because we didn't own furniture yet. Imani rested her hand on her belly and smiled like she was forcing light into the room. We're gonna make it, she said. I wanted to believe her with my whole life. Imani's friends threw her a small baby shower in a church basement on the south side. Folding chairs, streamers, cheap cupcakes, laughter that sounded like survival. Her Aunt Rochelle brought a stroller. A neighbor brought diapers. Someone brought little baby socks, so tiny they made me feel like crying in front of strangers. Imani sat on a chair with a paper crown that said mom-to-be and opened gifts like she wasn't carrying the entire world in her chest. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Hannah. Hannah, Mom says if you bring that girl to the house again, you're dead to us. I stared at the screen until the letters blurred. Imani saw my face. She didn't ask. She just took my hand and squeezed. You don't have to protect me from it, she said. I already know. That's when I realized my family wasn't just rejecting me. They were trying to make sure Imani felt unwelcome. Small, disposable. They wanted her to leave. Chicago doesn't do gentle winters. Chicago does war. The night Imani went into labor, the sky dumped snow like it had been holding a grudge all year. The streetlights looked like they were drowning in white. Her contractions came fast, too fast. I grabbed our hospital bag, helped her into my beat-up Corolla, and drove with both hands locked on the steering wheel like prayer could steer. I texted my mom. She's in labor. Please. No response. I call my dad. Voicemail. At the hospital, fluorescent lights made everything look exhausted. Nurses moved like soldiers. I signed paperwork with shaking hands. Imani grabbed my wrist. Don't leave, she whispered. I'm not going anywhere, I promised. Then she screamed, and my entire world became that sound. I learned something about love that night. It's not romance. It's staying. It's watching the person you die for break open with pain and refusing to look away. Our daughter was born at dawn. Lena Brooks Park. Tiny, red-faced, furious at the world. When I held her, something in me snapped into place like my life finally made sense. I sent a photo to my family. Meet Lena. She's perfect. Hours passed. Nothing. No congratulations. No, she's beautiful. No, are you okay? A nurse came in later with a paper bag. Some folks downstairs asked us to bring this up, she said. Inside were homemade muffins, a small blanket, and a note. From the neighbors. You're not alone. I didn't even know their names. And strangers in Chicago cared more about my daughter than my own blood did. The first year was survival math. Rent plus diapers plus formula plus exhaustion. I worked warehouse shifts near O'Hare. Then I drove rideshare nights until my eyes burned. I come home smelling like other people's cologne and stress. Imani tried to be strong, but strength has a cost. She got quieter. She stared at the wall too long. She cried without sound. She flinched when Lena cried like the noise was an alarm only she could hear. One night, I came home and found her on the bathroom floor, knees pulled to her chest, whispering, I can't. Postpartum depression isn't sadness. It's drowning while everyone tells you to swim harder. We begged her mom for help. Her mom did what she could, but she worked nights and lived downstate. We scraped money for therapy until copays started eating our groceries. My family? Still silent. Still absent. Still pretending Lena didn't exist. When Lena was 2, she got sick. It started as a cough, then a fever. Then her tiny chest began pulling inward when she breathed, like her lungs were trying to escape her ribs. It was 2 a.m. Our apartment smelled like Vicks and fear. At the ER, the doctor said the word that made my stomach drop. Pneumonia. They admitted her immediately. I sat beside her bed watching machines do what my body couldn't. Keep my child safe. Imani stroked Lena's hair, whispering, she's so small. The bill came later like a threat. $12,000 after insurance. We had maybe $400. I did the thing I swore I'd never do again. I called my mother. She answered on the third ring like she'd been waiting for drama. Hello. My voice cracked. Mom, Lena's in the hospital. Pneumonia. We need help. Silence. Then, why are you calling me? Because you're my mother, I almost screamed. Instead, I said, because she's your granddaughter. My mom's voice turned to ice. You made your decision, Ethan. Mom, she could. I swallowed hard. She could die. She didn't, my mother said sharply. Handle your problems. And she hung up. I stared at the phone like it was a weapon. Imani didn't cry. She looked at me with exhausted understanding, like she'd known my family would never show up when it mattered. That's when something in me broke clean in half. Not sadness, not anger, something colder. Acceptance. A year later, we were in a grocery store in Portage Park. Lena sat in the cart waving at strangers like she owned the world. I turned down an aisle and froze. My entire extended family stood near the bakery section. My parents, Hannah, Caleb, aunts, uncles, even my grandmother. Balloons, cake box, laughter, an uncle's birthday. My grandmother, my original grandmother, looked directly at Lena. Lena smiled and waved. And my grandmother looked away. Not because she didn't recognize us, because she did. And she chose not to. My mother saw me next. Her eyes widened. For half a second, hope tried to wake up inside me. Then she turned, and the rest of them followed like shame was contagious. Lena pointed. Daddy, people. My hand shook on the cart handle. Imani's face went pale. Did they just yes, I said. They did. That was the day I stopped waiting for my family to become decent. I couldn't rewrite my family, so I rewrote my future. I took night classes in healthcare administration and medical billing because I'd learned the hard way how medical bills can destroy a family. I studied while Lena slept. I practiced spreadsheets like they were life rafts. Eventually, I landed a job as a billing assistant at a small clinic near the Loop. The clinic was chaos, denials everywhere, codes wrong, money leaking out like a cracked pipe. But I saw something other people didn't. A system can be fixed. I built a process. Appeals, tracking, follow-up schedules, insurance calls that lasted 40 minutes where someone tried to outstubber me. They didn't. Within a year, the clinic's revenue improved enough that the owner hugged me in the hallway like I'd saved his life. And I realized I wasn't just surviving. I was building leverage. Chicago loves a comeback story. A local business blog featured my work. Top small consultancies helping clinics recover lost revenue. My face was online. My name, a quote about building stability after hard seasons. A week later, my phone buzzed with a number I hadn't seen in years. My father. I let it ring. It buzzed again. Then a text. Dad, we should talk. Another text from Hannah. Hannah, OMG, I saw your article. So proud of you. Lena must be huge now, loudly crying face, so proud. They hadn't asked if we were alive in 11 years. Now they were proud. Imani read the text over my shoulder and said quietly, they're coming. Yeah, I said, I know. And in my gut, I felt it. The same feeling you get when you see storm clouds over Lake Michigan. Something was about to hit. The first thing my mother did after my name showed up online wasn't call to apologize. She Googled my address. I know, because the very next Tuesday, my receptionist buzzed my office line with a voice that sounded like she'd swallowed a panic button. Ethan, there's a woman here. She says she's your mother. She walked past the sign-in sheet. I looked up from my laptop and felt that old, familiar tightening in my chest, the one I used to mistake for respect. It was fear. Tell her I'm in a meeting, I said. A pause. She says she'll wait, my receptionist whispered. She's looking around. Of course she was. My mother never entered a room without inspecting it like she was appraising property. I stood slowly, as if moving too fast might make this real, and stepped out of my office. And there she was in my lobby, pearls at her throat, hair perfect, handbag structured like a weapon, standing in front of the framed Northside Revenue Solution sign like she'd helped pay for it. She turned when she heard my footsteps. Her eyes traveled over me, shoes, shirt, posture, taking inventory. Then she smiled. Not a mother's smile. A customer's. Well, she said, look at you. For a moment, I just stared at her. I hadn't seen my mother up close in years. Not since she hung up on me while Lena fought pneumonia. The last time her voice filled my ear, it had been ice. Now she stood in my lobby like she'd come to tour a condo. Why are you here? I asked. Her smile flickered. Just a millisecond of irritation, like my question was bad manners. To see my son, she said, and the word son sounded like a claim. And to see what you built. She turned her head slowly, scanning the lobby. The clean chairs, the coffee station, the tasteful print on the wall, the receptionist's desk with its neat stack of appointment forms. My mother looked pleased in the way she looked when something was expensive. What is this place? She asked. My office, I said. And you own it? She pressed. I run it, I corrected. What do you want? She took a few steps toward the wall where a few certificates hung. Billing compliance, consulting credentials, a small award from a local small business association. She leaned in and squinted like she was reading proof I was real. I saw the article, she said. People are talking. There was again. People. Talking. She glanced at my receptionist and lowered her voice like she was sharing gossip. Mrs. Hahn from church asked me if it was my Ethan, she said. I didn't answer. My mother's eyes landed on the photo sitting on the edge of my desk through the glass. Lena and I at Navy Pier, her missing a front tooth, grin huge. My mother's body went still for half a second. Then she stepped closer, almost reverent, and touched the frame lightly with her fingertips. She looks like you, she said. I didn't offer anything. Not her name. Not her age. Not a single crumb. My mother cleared her throat, and the mask slid back on. Your father's been stressed, she said. his blood pressure. And your aunt, your father's sister, her medical bills are getting worse. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. There it is, I said. She blinked. Excuse me. You didn't come for me, I said. You came for money. Her mouth tightened. Family helps family, she snapped, like it was a rule written in stone. I held her gaze. Where was that rule when Lena was in the hospital? I asked. When I was begging, my mother's eyes darted away for the first time. Only for a second. Then they came back sharp. We did what we thought was best, she said. For who? I asked. She pressed her lips together. Her fingers tightened around her purse strap. And then she did something that made my stomach drop. Not because it hurt, but because it revealed just how little she'd changed. She sighed dramatically and said, "This is why I didn't want you getting involved with complications." Complications. She meant Imani. She meant my daughter. Like they were a stain on a shirt. I felt my voice go quiet, danger quiet. Don't speak about my family that way, I said. My mother stiffened. Ethan, no, I said. You don't get to show up and rewrite the story. You don't get to pretend you're proud now. Her nostrils flared. I am your mother. And you hung up on me, I said, when my daughter couldn't breathe. For a moment, something almost human flickered across her face. Then she swallowed it. I came here in good faith, she said, to reconnect. I smiled once without warmth. You came here to measure what you can take, I said. Her eyes sharpened into anger. You've become arrogant. I've become awake, I said. There's a difference. My mother's jaw clenched. Then she tilted her head slightly and tried a new tactic, softness. You know, she said, voice gentler, your grandmother asks about you. My stomach twisted. That name, Grandma, still had power. I'm sure she does, I said. She's getting older, my mother added. Time is precious. I stared at her for a long beat and realized the play she was running. Not connection. Leverage. My mother turned to go, but paused at the door. We should have dinner, she said. Like a family. My voice stayed flat. We're not a family. Her eyes flashed. Then she left. And as the lobby door closed behind her, my receptionist whispered, that was intense. I didn't answer, because my hands were shaking, not from fear of her, but from how easily the past tried to crawl back inside me. The next day, my phone lit up with a number I hadn't saved. Then another. Then another. Voicemails piled up like trash outside a door. Caleb, bro, it's been a while. I just need a small loan to get back on my feet. Like $5,000. That's nothing to you now. Hannah, Ethan, I'm getting married. You should help. It would look really bad if you didn't. People will ask questions. Aunt Sora, your father has done so much. We are family. You should do the right thing. They didn't ask how Lena was. They didn't ask how Imani was. They asked for money like my success was a communal bank account. I didn't respond. So they escalated. They started showing up. One afternoon, a man in a suit appeared in my lobby and introduced himself as my cousin's fiancé. He handed my receptionist a resume and said, "Tell Ethan I'm ready for a management role." A week later, a woman from church I barely knew cornered Imani outside Lena's school pickup and said, "So nice to see you. Your mother-in-law says you've been keeping the family apart. That's sad." Imani came home that day with her jaw tight and her eyes glassy. "They're trying to circle us," she said. I nodded. "I know." Imani set down her keys like they were too heavy. "Ethan," she whispered, "I don't care about your money. I care about Lena." "I know," I said, and I felt something hard settle in my bones. So do I. That night, I bought a Ring camera and installed it myself. Because in Chicago, peace isn't something you hope for. It's something you defend. It started small. A friend request. A message. A "Hi, sweetie." Hannah found Lena's art account. Something Lena used to share photos and little drawings of Chicago street murals and lake sunsets. Hannah messaged her, "Hi, baby. I'm your Aunt Hannah. I missed you so much." Lena came to me with her iPad, eyebrows pulled together. "Daddy," she said, "who is this?" I felt my chest go tight. Imani stepped closer behind Lena, reading over her shoulder. Lena scrolled. More messages appeared. "We have family dinners all the time. You should come meet everyone. Your grandma cries because she misses you." Imani inhaled sharply. That last line was a knife. Lena looked up at me, confused and hopeful in the way kids are when they sense a door they didn't know existed. Do I have a grandma? She asked. Aunties? Uncles? I sat down slowly, so I was eye level with her. You do, I said carefully. Lena's eyes widened. Why don't they know me? Because they didn't want to. The truth sat in my throat like a stone. I swallowed. Because they made choices, I said. Bad ones. And I protected you from them. Lena stared at the messages again. But she says she missed me. Imani knelt beside Lena and placed a hand on her shoulder. Baby, she said gently, missing someone isn't the same as loving them the right way. Lena's lower lip trembled. Did I do something wrong? My heart cracked. No, I said fast, voice rough. Never. You didn't do anything wrong. This is adult stuff. Adult mistakes. Imani's eyes met mine, dark, furious, steady. We need boundaries, she said. I know, I whispered. And we need them now. That night, I screenshotted every message. And for the first time, I called a lawyer. Not because I wanted revenge, because I wanted protection. The lawyer's office was downtown, all glass and beige carpet that smelled like money. She listened quietly while I laid it all out. The abandonment, the pneumonia call, the grocery store erasure, the sudden return. Then I showed her the messages. She tapped a pen against the desk, thinking, this isn't just family drama, she said finally. This is harassment, and they're contacting a minor. My stomach dropped, even though I already knew it. What do I do? I asked. First, she said, you document everything. Every message, every voicemail, every time they show up. Second, you notify the school immediately. Make it clear who is and isn't allowed to pick up your child. Imani's hands clenched in her lap. They wouldn't, she said. They wouldn't try to. The lawyer looked at her kindly. People do desperate things when they feel entitled, she said. I felt cold spread across my ribs. And if they keep escalating, the lawyer continued, you may need a restraining order. I nodded slowly. Imani swallowed hard. Can they sue for grandparents' rights? She asked. The lawyer's expression didn't change much, but her voice stayed careful. Grandparents' rights vary by state and situation, she said. But generally, courts care about the child's best interest in an existing relationship. They don't magically grant access just because someone shares DNA. Imani exhaled shakily. I nodded again, but my mind was already racing. Because what terrified me wasn't court. It was the in-between, the school pickup line, the parking lot, the random knock on our door, the way my mother could smile while twisting a knife. On the way home, Imani stared out the car window at the gray Chicago sky. They're going to tell Lena's stories, she said softly. Stories where we're the villains. I know, I said. What if Lena believes them? She whispered. I reached over and squeezed her hand. Then we tell Lena the truth, I said. And we keep telling it until it sticks. Imani nodded, but her eyes stayed wet. Because the truth isn't always enough when a child wants a family, even a bad one. 2 weeks later, my father texted me from a new number. Dad, this has gone too far. We need to meet. Family dinner. Lincoln Square. Saturday, 6 p.m. I stared at the message until my vision narrowed. Imani read it and shook her head immediately. No, she said. It's a trap, I agreed. Then why are you thinking about it? She asked. I didn't have a clean answer. Because part of me wanted to see if they were capable of remorse. Because part of me wanted to look them in the eye and make them hear me. Because a stupid part of me still wanted my father to be proud for the right reasons. I hated that part. I'm not bringing Lena, I said. Imani's voice went hard. You're not bringing yourself either. I stared at her. Imani stepped closer, eyes blazing. They already proved who they are, she said. You don't walk back into a fire to check if it's still hot. I swallowed. She was right. But something in me needed closure like a wound needs air. I'm going, I said quietly. I'm going alone. Imani looked at me for a long time. Then she nodded once, sharp. Okay, she said. But you record it. I blinked. What? She didn't smile. They'll twist whatever happens, she said. They'll lie. So you record it. My wife, my strong, steady wife, was done being naive. And for the first time, I realized how much Imani had changed since those early years. She wasn't just surviving now. She was armored. Lincoln Square looked warm at night. String lights, cozy restaurants, couples laughing like life was simple. But when I walked into the restaurant my father chose, the warmth felt like a lie. I saw them immediately. A long table in the back. My parents at the center like royalty. Hannah beside my mother, hair curled, nails perfect, eyes already sharp with judgment. Caleb slouched at the end. Scrolling his phone like this was an inconvenience. Aunts and uncles filling in the sides, faces expectant. Even my grandmother sat there, small and wrapped in a cardigan, hands folded, eyes down. My stomach lurched. This wasn't dinner. This was court. I slid into the only empty seat. My father didn't say hello. He said, "We're here because your behavior has been shameful." I almost laughed. Shameful, I repeated. My mother's voice cut in, smooth and poisonous. "You've embarrassed the family," she said. "We try to protect you, but you become hostile. Hostile, like boundaries were violence." My uncle leaned forward. "Ethan," he said, smiling too wide, "we hear you're doing well." There it was, the real reason. My father folded his hands like a negotiator. "We've had hardships," he said. "Medical, debt. You know how things are." My mother nodded. "And you have the means to help." I stared at them, heart hammering, voice quiet. "Before we talk about money," I said, "answer one question." My father's eyes narrowed. "What? Do you remember Lena's pneumonia?" I asked. Silence. My mother's gaze flicked away first. Caleb sighed like he was bored. Hannah rolled her eyes. My father said, "That was a long time ago." Something snapped in me. "A long time ago?" I repeated. "My daughter was in a hospital bed. I called you, Mom." You hung up. My mother's lips tightened. "We weren't going to enable what?" My voice rose. "My child breathing?" The table went quiet, and I felt every nearby patron's attention shift toward us like a subtle tide. My father's jaw clenched. "Lower your voice," he hissed. "No," I said. "I spent years lowering my voice so you could keep your image." "I'm done." Hannah scoffed. "You're being dramatic." I turned to her slowly. "Tell Lena that," I said. "Tell her why you never came to a birthday. Tell her why you ignored her existence. Tell her why you contacted her online like a stranger." Hannah's face hardened. "I was trying to connect. You were trying to recruit." I snapped. "You were trying to pull my child into your story." My mother leaned forward, eyes sharp. "You are poisoning her against us," she said. I laughed once bitter. "You did that yourselves," I said. "When you looked away from her in a grocery store like she was shame." My grandmother's shoulders flinched. My eyes swung to her. Even now, she wouldn't look up. My voice softened, dangerous. "Grandma," I said, "do you remember Portage Park? The bakery aisle?" Lena waved at you. Slowly, my grandmother lifted her eyes. They were watery, and for the first time, I saw it, the guilt she'd carried. But guilt without action is just self-pity. My father slammed his hand on the table. "Enough," he barked. "You're not here to accuse us. You're here because you are our son, and we are family. Family shares burdens." I leaned back, breathing hard. "Family shows up," I said quietly. My mother's voice turned cold. "You think you're better than us," she said. "You have money now, and suddenly you're too good." I stared at her. "You don't get to call it money like it fell into my lap," I said. "You don't get to erase the nights I slept in my car because I couldn't afford gas to drive Uber and still make rent. You don't get to erase the mornings I watched Imani cry, quietly, so Lena wouldn't hear. You don't get to claim the harvest when you refuse to water the seeds." My father's face darkened. "You will help," he said, voice low like a threat, "or you will regret it." That sentence made the room tilt. I leaned forward. "Is that a threat?" I asked softly. My father held my gaze. "I'm your father," he said. "Don't push me." That was the moment I realized this wasn't about reconciliation. It was about control. And control doesn't negotiate. Control punishes. I stood. My chair scraped the floor like a warning. "I'm leaving," I said. My mother's voice shot after me. "If you walk out," she hissed, "you're cutting off your grandmother." My hand froze on the back of my chair. Grandma's face crumpled slightly, and I hated my mother for using her like a hostage. I looked at my grandmother. "I love you," I said, "but love doesn't mean access. You looked away when my daughter needed you to see her." Grandma's lips trembled. My father rose halfway out of his chair. "You ungrateful." I held up a hand. I'm done, I said. Do not contact my child again. Then I walked out. I didn't slam the door. I didn't shout, because I wasn't the one who needed drama to feel powerful. I got into my car, hands shaking, and sat in the dark. My phone buzzed immediately. A text from my mother. Mom, you will regret humiliating us. I stared at the words, and something cold settled in my stomach. Because she didn't say, I'm sorry. She said, you'll regret it. It started the next morning. A call from Lena's school. Mr. Park, the principal said carefully, we had someone come by asking questions about Lena. My throat tightened. Who? I asked. The principal hesitated. A woman. She said she was family. My vision went narrow. What did she look like? I asked, even though I already knew. The principal described pearls. Perfect hair. A structured purse. My mother. I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles hurt. She's not authorized, I said. No one from my family is authorized. I already sent the list. Yes, the principal said quickly. We didn't release any information, but I wanted you to know. I thanked her and hung up. Then I called Imani. They went to the school. I said. Imani didn't gasp. She didn't cry. She went quiet. And when I heard her inhale, it sounded like a switch flipping. Okay, she said. Okay, now we move. Move, I repeated. Not houses, she said. Move like we're at war. She was right. That night we sat at the kitchen table while Lena slept, and we did what my family never expected us to do. We got organized. We printed photos of my parents, Hannah, Caleb, anyone Lena might recognize. We made a school packet, not authorized. Do not release. Call police if they appear. We updated emergency contacts. We locked down Lena's social accounts and changed privacy settings. We saved every voicemail, every text, every friendly message that carried a hook. And as we worked, I kept thinking about my mother's final line. You will regret humiliating us. Because now I understood something I'd never fully accepted before. My family didn't just abandon me. They believe they still own me. And when ownership gets challenged, it doesn't let go. It tightens. 3 days later, my receptionist buzzed again. Ethan, she whispered, your dad is here. My stomach dropped like an elevator cut loose. I stood slowly, heart thundering. Through the glass of my office door, I saw him in the lobby, coat buttoned, posture rigid, eyes scanning like he was searching for a weakness. He wasn't alone. Hannah was with him. And Caleb. 3 of them, standing together like a united front, like a takeover team. My receptionist looked terrified. He says he's not leaving until you talk, she said. I looked at my desk, at Lena's photo, at the little sticky note I kept by my monitor that said peace is the goal in Imani's handwriting. My hands started shaking, but my voice went calm. Call security, I said. My receptionist blinked. Are you sure? I stared through the glass at my father's face. He wasn't here to reconcile. He was here to reclaim. Yes, I said. I'm sure. And as I stepped out of my office, I realized we'd reached the moment my mother had promised. The regret, the punishment, the line they thought would break me. But they didn't understand something. Chicago raised me too. And Chicago doesn't reward people who think entitlement is love. Not anymore. I stepped out of my office and into the lobby like I was walking into a weather system. My father stood near the reception desk with Hannah and Caleb flanking him. 3 bodies arranged like a statement. Not family, a formation. Dad's coat was buttoned to the top. His hair was immaculate. His face carried that calm fury he used when he wanted to look controlled while doing damage. Hannah had a tight smile, the kind she wore at weddings and funerals, events where she believed she was being judged by strangers. Caleb looked bored, but his eyes kept flicking around like he was calculating what the room was worth. My receptionist sat stiffly behind her desk, hands folded like prayer. When my father saw me, he lifted his chin like he'd won something. Ethan, he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Finally, I didn't step closer. I didn't hug him. I didn't offer a greeting. I stayed exactly where I was, at the edge of the lobby near the glass doors where security would have a clear line. What are you doing here? I asked. My father's eyes narrowed slightly, offended by the fact that I'd asked like he didn't belong. We're here to talk, he said. You've been acting irrationally. Hannah laughed softly. He's been spiraling, Dad. Caleb shrugged. Bro, you really blocked everybody? That's insane. My chest tightened, but my voice stayed calm. This is my workplace, I said. You don't get to show up like this. My father stepped closer, stopping about 5 feet away, close enough to intimidate, far enough to pretend he wasn't. You embarrassed us, he said, voice low. We try to handle this privately. You forced us to take stronger measures. That phrase, stronger measures, made my blood run cold. What measures? I asked. Hannah tilted her head, sweetly. Relax. Nobody's trying to hurt you. Caleb smirked. We're just handling things. I looked at my receptionist. She looked like she wanted to disappear into the carpet. I turned back to them. Leave, I said. My father's nostrils flared. You don't order me around. I felt the old reflex, the childhood instinct to shrink, to soften, to negotiate. I crushed it. Yes, I said evenly. I do. Because you're trespassing. Dad's eyes flashed. Hannah's smile froze. Caleb chuckled, like this was entertainment. That's how it is, my father said. After everything we did for you, I stared at him. You didn't come to Lena's birth, I said. You didn't answer when she had pneumonia. You looked away when she waved at you. What exactly did you do for me? My father's jaw tightened. Hannah jumped in, quick, trying to steer the narrative. Ethan, you're rewriting history, she said. Mom was devastated. We were all, you messaged my daughter, I cut in, voice sharp now. A child. Without permission. Hannah's eyes widened like I'd accused her of crime. I was trying to connect, she insisted. She deserves to know her family. She deserves safety, I said. Caleb rolled his eyes. Dude, you're acting like we're kidnappers. My father lifted a hand, silencing him like he was a dog. Then Dad leaned in slightly and said the thing he knew would hit the deepest. Your grandmother cried last night. My stomach twisted. He watched my face closely, waiting for the crack. Don't, I warned. She's old, Dad said. She's sick. She wants to see her great-granddaughter. And you're sitting here playing petty games. Petty, I repeated, voice low. You try to contact Lena behind our backs. Hannah shrugged, all innocence. So what? You were ignoring us. My vision tunneled. That entitlement, that belief that my silence was an offense against them, made something in me go cold. You don't get to bypass parents because you feel ignored, I said. That's not love. That's control. Dad's lips curled slightly. You're sounding like your wife, he said. Not Imani. Not her name. Your wife. Like she was a virus that infected my mind. I stepped forward for the first time, just one step. And I said, very clearly, say her name. My father blinked. What? Say Imani's name, I repeated, out loud. With respect. Hannah scoffed. Caleb snorted. My father's eyes hardened. I will not, he said. She turned you against us. I exhaled slowly. And in that exhale, I felt the last thread of hope I'd been carrying finally snap. Okay, I said. Then we're done. I turned slightly and nodded toward my receptionist. Security should be on the way, I said. My father's posture changed instantly. His calm cracked. Security? He repeated, voice rising. You're calling security on your own father? Hannah's face went furious. Ethan, are you insane? Caleb laughed. No way. This is wild. My father stepped closer, and I could see the rage vibrating under his skin. Listen, he hissed. You don't get to treat us like strangers. You think you can cut us off like we're nothing? You forget who you are. I held his gaze. I know exactly who I am, I said. I'm Lena's father. That's the only title that matters. My father's eyes flicked, just briefly, to the framed photo on my desk behind the glass. Then back to me. You're my son, he said, voice heavy. And you will fix this. Or what? I asked. His mouth tightened. Hannah leaned in, voice low and nasty. Or we'll make sure everybody knows what kind of man you are, she whispered. The kind who abandons his mother and grandmother. I smiled, but there was no warmth. You mean the mother who hung up when Lena couldn't breathe? I said. Hannah flinched, then snapped. Stop saying that like it's what? I cut in. Like it's not real. Security arrived then, 2 men in dark uniforms. One approached calmly. Sir, he said to my father, you need to leave the premises. My father straightened up and forced a smile like he was a respectable citizen being inconvenienced. I'm his father, he said. The guard's expression didn't change. That doesn't matter, he said. You were asked to leave. Now you leave. My father's smile evaporated. You don't understand, Dad said, voice rising. This is family business. The guard nodded slightly like he'd heard that excuse 1,000 times. Sir, he repeated, last warning. My father looked at me then, eyes blazing. And that's when he shouted it. The sentence that turned every head in the building. You're my son, Ethan. You OWES. The lobby went dead quiet. The guard took his arm. My father jerked away. Hannah screamed, don't touch him. Caleb's eyes widened, finally realizing this wasn't just a show. The second guard stepped in and took Dad's other arm. Dad fought just enough to make a scene, because he lived for scenes. He wanted witnesses. He wanted shame to cling to me like smoke. As they guided him toward the elevator, my father leaned back and shouted over his shoulder, this is what she did to you. That woman poisoned you. Imani. Still not her name. Just that woman. And in that moment, something inside me rose up, something Chicago taught me on cold nights when nobody was coming to save you. If you want peace, you have to choose it, even when it costs you blood. My father turned his head one last time as the elevator doors opened. You'll regret this, he spat. I promise you. Then the doors closed, and the lobby exhaled. My receptionist looked like she might cry. A client stood frozen, clutching her purse. I went back into my office, shut the door, and stared at Lena's photo on my desk. Her smile was so bright it almost hurt. And I realized my father had just declared war. War doesn't start with fists. It starts with stories. Within 48 hours, people I hadn't heard from in years were texting me concerned messages. A cousin I barely knew. Heard you cut grandma off? That's Cole, man. A church lady. Your mom is devastated. She raised you better than this. An old family friend, praying you'll soften your heart. Softening my heart meant opening the door so they could walk back in and take what they wanted. I didn't respond. Then the messages changed tone. They became sharper, accusatory, manipulative. Your dad is sick from stress. Hannah says you're unstable. Caleb says you owe them for college. College. That one almost made me laugh. I'd pay my tuition with warehouse shifts and scholarships. My parents had offered help the way they offered affection, rarely, and only if it bought obedience. And now they were rewriting history. Imani watched me scroll through the texts, jaw clenched. They're building a narrative, she said. Yeah, I muttered. And I know how this ends. Not if we control our story, she said. I looked up at her. Imani took my phone gently. Post one thing, she said. One. Calm. Clear. No details. Just the boundary. I hated the idea of going public. But I hated the idea of Lena hearing some twisted version of her own life even more. So I wrote it. Short. Simple. Please stop contacting my minor child. All communication must go through legal counsel. Any further harassment will be documented. I posted it. Then I turned my phone off for an hour. When I turned it back on, my notifications were exploding. And the worst part? Someone had commented under my post. Tell your wife she can't steal someone's son. Karma's coming. Imani stared at that line for a long time. Then she said something I'll never forget. They still don't see me as human, she whispered. They see me as a thief. I took her face in my hands. You're not the thief, I said. They're the ones trying to steal. She nodded, eyes glossy. Then we make sure they don't, she said. Kids aren't stupid. They're just young. They pick up tension the way Chicago picks up snow. Slow at first, then all at once. A week after my dad got escorted out, Lena came home from school quiet. Too quiet. She dropped her backpack by the door without her usual dramatic sigh. She didn't launch into her daily story about who got in trouble or what mural they'd seen on the bus. She just walked into the kitchen and stood there, chewing her lip. Imani glanced at me. I set down my laptop. What's up, baby? I asked gently. Lena's eyes flicked between us like she was deciding whether it was safe to speak. Then she said, voice small, am I a mistake? The world stopped. Imani froze like she'd been struck. My chest tightened so hard it felt like it might crack. What? I managed. Lena's eyes filled with tears instantly. as if she'd been holding them all day. A girl at school said my grandma told her mom that I was a mistake, Lena whispered. She said my dad's family hates me because I ruined their reputation. My blood went ice cold. This wasn't just rumors anymore. This was shrapnel reaching my child. Imani moved first, crossing the kitchen in 2 steps and pulling Lena into her arms. "Oh, baby," Imani whispered, voice breaking. "No, no, no, no. You are not a mistake." Lena sobbed into her shoulder. I sat down slowly, hands shaking, trying to keep my voice steady. "Who said that to you?" I asked. Lena sniffed. "Madison." She said her mom heard it at church. Church? Of course. My father had promised I'd regret it. This was how he planned to make me regret it, by bleeding into my daughter's world. Imani rocked Lena gently. "You're a miracle," she whispered. "You hear me? You're the best thing that ever happened to us." Lena's voice muffled against her mom's sweater. "Then why don't they love me?" she cried. That question, pure, brutal, innocent, hit harder than anything my father had ever yelled. I swallowed hard. Because I could lie. I could say, "They do love you, they're just confused." But lies rot from the inside. So I told her the truth in a way she could carry. "Some people," I said softly, "don't know how to love correctly. They care more about what other people think than what's right." Lena pulled back, tears streaking her cheeks. "So they're wrong?" she asked. Imani cupped Lena's face. "They're wrong," she said firmly, "and they don't get to define you." Lena blinked rapidly. "But they're family." I leaned forward. "Family isn't a word," I said. "It's an action." Lena stared at me. "What action?" she whispered. "Showing up," I said. "Protecting. Caring. Choosing you every day." Lena's lip trembled. "Like you do?" she asked. I felt my throat tighten. "Yes," I said. "Like we do." Imani kissed Lena's forehead. "And anyone who tries to make you feel small," she said, voice steady now, angry in the right way, "they don't get access to you." Lena nodded slowly, still crying. I reached out and took her hand. "I promise you," I said, voice rough, "I will never let them hurt you again." And the moment those words left my mouth, I knew what I had to do next. Because boundaries weren't enough anymore. We needed consequences. The next morning, I walked into my lawyer's office with screenshots, names, dates, and a knot in my stomach that wouldn't loosen. "They're spreading it into her school," I said. My lawyer's face hardened. "Okay," she said. "Now we move." Imani sat beside me, jaw tight. The lawyer didn't sugarcoat it. "If your child is being targeted through community gossip, we can send formal cease and desist letters. We can also contact the school to document harassment and request they intervene if this continues." Imani's voice shook. "They're trying to poison her," she said. My lawyer nodded. "Yes, that's what this is." I signed papers with shaking hands. Not because I was unsure, because it felt like signing the death certificate of the family I once wished I had. That afternoon, my lawyer sent letters, formal, blunt, undeniable, to my parents, Hannah, Caleb, and 2 aunts who had been fueling the rumor engine. Do not contact the minor child. Do not approach the school. Do not harass or defame. All further communication must go through counsel. My mother responded the only way she knew how, with performance. She posted a Facebook status, public, dramatic, dripping with martyrdom. "Some children grow up and forget the sacrifices of their parents. Pray for my broken heart." People flooded the comments with sympathy like they were tossing coins at a street performer. I didn't respond. Imani didn't respond. But Lena saw it anyway, because a classmate's mom showed her. She came to us, holding her phone like it was hot. "Is Grandma's heart broken because of me?" Lena whispered. Imani took the phone, turned it off, and set it down gently like she was putting a weapon away. "No," Imani said. "Her heart is broken because she doesn't get what she wants." Lena frowned. "What does she want?" I looked at my daughter, this bright, sensitive kid who just wanted a bigger family. And I told her the truth again, carefully. "She wants control," I said. "And we don't give control to people who hurt us." Lena sat with that. Then she nodded once, small but firm. "Okay," she said. "I don't want them to control me." And I realized Lena was stronger than they ever expected. 2 weeks of relative quiet passed. No school appearances. No new messages from Hannah. No surprise family friend texts. I almost let myself breathe. Then a letter arrived at my office. Handwritten address. A familiar slant to the letters. My mother. My stomach dropped. I didn't open it right away. I set it on my desk and stared at it for an hour like it might bite. Finally, I took a breath and opened it with a letter opener, careful not to tear the paper, because something in me still respected handwriting, still respected effort, even when the effort was weaponized. Inside, one page. Your grandmother is not doing well. She is asking to see Lena. She cries for her. If you deny her this, you will live with regret. No apology, no accountability, just guilt poured like acid. At the bottom, a date and time, Saturday. 2 p.m. hospital visitation. It looked like mercy, but it felt like a trap. I brought the letter home. Imani read it slowly, eyes narrowing. This is an ambush, she said. Yeah, I muttered. They want you in a hospital, she said. Public place. Emotional setting. You'll look like the villain if you refuse. I rubbed my face. And if I go, they'll swarm us. Imani nodded. And Lena will get hurt. We sat in silence for a long time. Because Grandma was the soft spot. Grandma was the one part of my old life that still tasted like kindness. But then my mind flashed back to Portage Park, Lena waving, Grandma looking away. Grandma hadn't been forced to look away. She'd chosen it. And that was the truth I didn't want to hold. Imani reached across the table and squeezed my hand. You can grieve her, she said gently. You don't have to sacrifice Lena to do it. I swallowed hard. What if she really is dying? I whispered. Imani's eyes softened. Then we say goodbye our way, she said. Not their way. That night, I called my lawyer. And the next morning, my lawyer called the hospital. No patient under my grandmother's name. No record. No visitation scheduled. Nothing. The letter wasn't a request. It was a lure. My mother had lied about my grandmother's illness to drag us into a trap. When my lawyer told me, I felt something in me go completely still. Not rage. Not sadness. A final, clean clarity. I looked at Imani. She looked back at me, jaw tight. They'll do anything, she whispered. Yes, I said quietly. They will. And in that moment, I stopped seeing them as family with flaws. I saw them as what they were, people willing to use death, real or fake, to get access to my child. That is not love. That is a threat. We didn't just block numbers. We rebuilt the perimeter. I changed my phone number. Imani changed hers. We set Lena's devices to only accept messages from approved contacts. We updated the school again with a firmer note. We alerted the bus driver. We told our neighbors. We asked the school counselor to check in with Lena quietly so she had a safe adult at school. Then I did the hardest thing. I wrote a final message through my lawyer to my parents. Not emotional, not dramatic, just true. You have attempted to contact our minor child without consent, approached her school, and spread defamatory statements that have caused harm. You will have no further access. Do not contact us again. My father responded to my lawyer with a single line. He will come crawling back. My mother responded with something worse. A package arrived at our house. Inside was an old photo album. My childhood pictures, along with a sticky note. Remember who you were before she changed you. Imani read it and laughed once, humorless. They're trying to rewrite your identity, she said. I stared at the album. My face as a kid, smiling, trusting. Then I closed it. I remember who I was, I said quietly. I was someone who kept begging for crumbs. Imani nodded. And who are you now? She asked. I looked toward the hallway, where Lena's laughter echoed from her bedroom as she talked to a friend on FaceTime. I'm someone who feeds his own family, I said. Fully. Imani's eyes softened. Good, she said. Then we don't look back. Months passed. The rumor machine slowed when it stopped getting reaction from us. My mother kept posting vague heartbreak statuses, but without access to Lena, without a dramatic confrontation to film with her phone, the story dried up. People got bored. They always do. And something strange happened. The quieter it got, the more I could hear my real life. Lena started thriving again. She joined an art club at school. She came home excited about murals and lakefront photography and how the city looked different when you pay attention. One night, she sat at the kitchen table drawing a picture of our family, me, Imani, her, and behind us, she drew the Chicago skyline like a crown. At the top, she wrote, in her careful kid handwriting, "My real family." Imani's eyes filled with tears when she saw it. "What's real family?" Lena asked, looking up. Imani smiled gently. "The people who keep showing up," she said. Lena nodded seriously. "Even when it's hard?" she asked. "Especially then," I said. Lena looked between us. Then she said something that made my chest ache in the best way. "I don't want the other family anymore." Imani blinked. "Are you sure?" Lena nodded firmly. "They make my stomach feel bad," she said. "You and Mom make my stomach feel warm." I swallowed hard. "That's your body telling you the truth," I said softly. Lena shrugged like it was simple. "It is simple," she said. And in that moment, I realized something I wish I'd understood at 22. Love isn't supposed to be something you earn by bleeding. Love is supposed to be something you receive by being human. After the cease and desist letters, my family stopped knocking on the front door. So I made the mistake of thinking they'd finally understood the rules. I forgot something important. People who live off control don't stop when you say no. They stop when no costs them something. And my sister Hannah, who'd spent her whole life learning how to look innocent while doing damage, found a way to get close to Lena without ever texting us again. She didn't go through our phones. She didn't go through the school. She went through the one place I couldn't lock down completely: the city. Lena's school hosted an art night in the gym every spring. Kids taped paintings to folding tables. Parents wandered around with paper cups of juice and that proud, teary look adults get when they see proof their kid exists beyond homework. Lena was excited for weeks. She'd been working on a photo series called "Chicago is Not Just One Thing." Lake Michigan at sunrise, a mural under the blue line, a corner store sign glowing at dusk, a cracked sidewalk with a dandelion pushing through. When she taped her photos onto the display board, she stood back like an artist checking her own heartbeat. "Daddy," she whispered, "do you think people will like it?" I crouched beside her. "I think they'll feel it," I said. "That's better than liking." Imani squeezed Lena's shoulder. "You're brave," she said. "That's what artists are." The gym buzzed with noise and laughter. We were safe. We were surrounded. We were just another family in Chicago doing a normal thing. Then I saw her, Hannah, standing near the doorway like she'd been there the whole time. Hair curled, dressed too expensive for a school gym, smile soft and practiced. And beside her, like backup, was my mother, Pearls. Of course. My stomach dropped so hard it felt like the floor shifted. Imani's hand found mine immediately, grip tightening. "They're here," she whispered. Lena didn't notice yet. She was still arranging her photos, focused, proud. I scanned the gym. Security? None. Just a few teachers and a tired principal trying to manage 100 kids and their families. My lawyer's voice echoed in my head. "Document. Notify. Call police if they appear." But this wasn't school pickup. This was a public event. A community night. A gray area my mother loved. Hannah's eyes locked on Lena, and Hannah's smile widened, like she'd just spotted a prize. Imani's voice went low and urgent. "Ethan, don't let them get close." "I won't," I said, but Hannah started walking toward us like she belonged. My mother followed 2 steps behind, chin high, expression carefully arranged, sad enough to look like a victim, calm enough to look reasonable. Hannah reached Lena's display. "Oh my God," Hannah said brightly. "Is that Lena?" Lena turned. Her face went blank for half a second as her brain recognized a stranger who wasn't exactly a stranger. She'd seen Hannah's messages. The Aunt Hannah, who claimed she missed her. Lena blinked hard. Lena started. Hannah's eyes softened as if she'd been waiting for this moment her whole life. "Yes," Hannah whispered. "I'm your aunt." Imani stepped forward immediately, blocking Hannah's line to Lena like a wall. "Do not speak to her," Imani said. Hannah held up both hands in a theatrical gesture of innocence. "Whoa," she said. "I'm not doing anything wrong. It's a public event." My mother's voice came next, quiet and trembling on purpose. "I just wanted to see her," she said. "Just for a moment." Lena's eyes bounced between us. I saw confusion, curiosity, then that familiar flicker of hurt. Because kids want to be wanted, even by people who don't deserve them. I forced my voice to stay calm. "You were told not to contact her," I said. "You need to leave." My mother's eyes filled with tears on command. You're really going to do this? She whispered loudly enough for nearby parents to hear. In front of everyone, I felt heat rise in my neck. That was the play. Make me look cruel in public. Make them look like gentle, loving relatives being punished by a cold sun. Hannah tilted her head, sweet and sharp. We're family, she said. You can't ban us from a child's life just because you're angry. Imani's jaw clenched. This child, she said, is not your emotional support animal. Hannah's smile flickered. Ethan, Hannah said, voice turning syrupy, don't you think Lena deserves to know the truth? That we've been trying to love her, but you keep… Stop, I snapped. A few nearby parents turned. Lena's hands trembled. I crouched slightly toward Lena. Go stand with your friend, I said softly. Right now? Lena hesitated, eyes wide. Imani touched her back gently. Baby, go. Lena walked away slowly, glancing back like she didn't know what she was allowed to feel. The moment she was out of reach, my mother's tears disappeared. Like magic, her eyes went cold. You see, she murmured. She wants us. I stared at her. You're using her, I said quietly. Hannah sighed dramatically. We're not leaving, she said. Call the police if you want. Imagine how that looks. Man calls cops on his own mother at a school event. Viral. Imani's face went deadly calm. You're threatening us, she said. Hannah smiled. I'm stating facts, she replied. That's when the principal noticed the tension and approached, cautious. Everything okay? She asked. My mother turned instantly into the perfect, wounded grandmother. Yes, she said softly. We're just here to see our granddaughter's art. The principal looked at me. I didn't blink. They're not authorized to be near my child, I said clearly. We have legal documentation. The principal hesitated, caught between public event and child safety. Hannah leaned in, voice sweet again. We're not hurting anyone, she said. We're family. I felt my patience thin like ice. Family doesn't spread rumors that a child is a mistake, I said. Hannah's smile froze. My mother's eyes flashed with anger, real anger this time. The principal's expression changed. What rumors? She asked. Hannah's eyes darted, and in that dart I saw something, a crack, a tiny opening, because Hannah hadn't expected the principal to be listening this closely. I stepped forward. My daughter came home crying, I said, voice steady, because a classmate told her my family said she ruined their reputation. The principal's face went stiff. Imani's voice trembled with controlled rage. She asked us if she was a mistake, Imani said. Do you understand what that does to a child? The principal straightened, suddenly not neutral anymore. Ma'am, she said to my mother, I'm going to need you to leave. My mother's eyes widened. What? She sputtered. The principal's voice stayed firm. This event is for families, she said, emphasis sharp, and you're causing distress. Please leave. Hannah's smile collapsed into fury. This is insane, she snapped. You can't kick us out. The principal lifted her chin. I can, and I will. Leave now. Hannah turned to me, eyes burning. This isn't over, she hissed. Then she looked past me, toward Lena's photo board, and said loud enough for half the gym to hear, she deserves a real family, Ethan. Not your… Imani stepped forward like lightning. Finish that sentence, Imani said coldly, and you'll regret it. Hannah's mouth snapped shut. My mother grabbed Hannah's arm, pulling her away. They left the gym in a storm of offended whispers. And I stood there shaking, not from fear, but from the realization that the perimeter I'd built around our life had just been tested in public. And my family had found a weakness. They could reach us anywhere if they were willing to perform. On the drive home, Lena stared out the window quietly. Streetlights slid across her face like passing thoughts. Imani sat in the passenger seat, jaw tight, staring straight ahead. I finally spoke, gentle. Baby, how are you feeling? Lena didn't answer at first. Then she whispered. She looked happy to see me. My heart tightened. Yeah, I said carefully. She did. Lena's voice shook. Was it real? She asked. Imani turned in her seat to look at Lena, eyes soft. Sweetheart, she said, sometimes people smile because they want something. Lena frowned. What did she want? Lena asked. I gripped the steering wheel. She wanted access, I said. She wanted you close enough to pull into her story. Lena stared at her hands. Am I like a toy? She whispered. Imani's eyes filled with tears. No, she said firmly. You are not a toy. You're a person. You're our daughter. Lena's voice cracked. Then why do they keep coming? She asked. I swallowed hard. Because, I said, voice rough, they don't like that they lost control. Lena blinked hard, fighting tears. I don't like them, she whispered. I don't like how they make my stomach cold. I felt relief and heartbreak at the same time. That's your body protecting you, I said softly. You could trust that. Lena nodded slowly. Then she asked the question that made me almost pull over. Do I have to see them again? Imani turned fully toward her. No, she said. You do not. Lena's shoulders dropped, like her whole body had been holding itself up with worry. Okay, Lena whispered. Okay. And in that moment, I realized the next step wasn't optional anymore. They'd crossed from harassment into direct contact attempts. We needed more than letters. We needed legal teeth. 2 days later, the principal called me. I wanted to follow up, she said. I spoke with Madison's mother. My stomach tightened. And I asked. The principal hesitated. She admitted she heard comments at church, she said. She said your mother was emotional, that she referred to Lena as an unfortunate situation. My hand shook, and she repeated it to her daughter. The principal added quietly, which is unacceptable. I closed my eyes. So it was true, not just rumor. A chain, my mother church gossip, a child, my child. I felt something inside me go very still. Thank you for telling me, I said carefully. The principal lowered her voice. Mr. Park, she said, I want you to know we will support whatever steps you need to take to protect Lena. We can issue a no trespass order for school property. We can also document the incident formally. I swallowed. Yes, I said, please document it. After I hung up, I sat in my office staring at the wall, because now I knew exactly what my mother was willing to do. She didn't just want access. She wanted to hurt us into giving it. My lawyer didn't hesitate when I told her about art night. This is escalation, she said. Public contact attempt with a minor after written notice. What do we do? I asked. We petition for a protective order, she said. And we request specific conditions. No contact with the child, no approaching school events, no contacting through third parties. Imani sat beside me, hands clenched. My daughter asked if she was a toy. She whispered, voice breaking. I'm done. My lawyer nodded. Then we go forward, she said. Signing those papers felt like swallowing fire. Because part of me still wished my parents were the kind of people who would hear protective order and wake up. But another part of me, the part that had watched Lena cry, already knew they wouldn't wake up. They would rage. They would retaliate. And we needed to be ready. Retaliation came fast. Not with fists, with damage to my name. A week after we filed, my business started getting weird calls. A clinic manager canceled a contract meeting for now. A receptionist at a potential client's office said, awkwardly, we heard some concerns. I asked calm, concerns about what? She paused. About your personal situation, she whispered. Personal situation. That phrase was my mother's perfume. Then my office received an anonymous email. Ethan Park is unstable and unsafe. He is involved in legal issues and cannot be trusted with sensitive patient information. My blood went cold. That wasn't just gossip. That was sabotage. My lawyer read the email and looked up. Do you have cyberlogs? She asked. I stared at her. Then I smiled once tight. I do, I said, because they'd forgotten something important about me. I had built my entire career by tracking systems, following trails, documenting patterns, and if my family wanted to play dirty, fine. I knew how to clean. Over the next 2 weeks, I documented everything. I pulled my office camera footage from the day my dad trespassed. I pulled the school's incident report. I pulled screenshots of Hannah messaging Lena. I pulled the cease and desist letter receipts, delivery confirmations, timestamps, signatures. I pulled the anonymous email metadata. Not enough to prove publicly who sent it, but enough to show intent and a pattern of harassment linked to the same timeline. Imani watched me build the file folder, digital and physical, like I was assembling a case. What are you going to do with all that? She asked quietly. I looked at her. Protect Lena, I said. She nodded once. Good, she said, because I'm tired of being polite with people who weren't polite when our baby couldn't breathe. That sentence hit me hard because it reminded me how long Imani had carried this. How many years she'd been the villain in their story without ever getting to speak. So I made a decision, not out of revenge, out of truth. I wrote a single controlled statement for the court filing. Nothing emotional, nothing dramatic, just facts. Abandonment history, pneumonia call hang-up, direct contact attempts, school rumor harm, office trespass and intimidation, business sabotage attempts. Then I handed it to my lawyer. And for the first time, I felt something like power. Not the ugly kind my father craved, but the clean kind, the power to choose safety without apology. The court scheduled the hearing for a Tuesday morning. My lawyer warned us, your family will perform. Imani nodded. Let them. Lena didn't know the details. We told her only what she needed to know. We're making sure nobody bothers you again. The night before the hearing, Lena climbed into bed with us like she did when she had nightmares. She curled between me and Imani like she belonged there, because she did. Daddy, she whispered in the dark. Yeah, baby? If they say I'm a mistake again, she hesitated, voice tiny. What do I do? I felt my throat tighten. Imani answered first, soft but firm. You tell yourself the truth, she said. You are wanted. You are loved. You are not responsible for their brokenness. Lena was quiet for a beat. Then she whispered, Can I say it out loud? Imani smiled in the dark. Yes. Lena took a shaky breath. I'm not a mistake, she said quietly. My eyes stung. Imani kissed her forehead. That's right, she whispered. Lena exhaled. Then she said something that made me realize just how deep this had gone. I pick warm, she whispered again, like a promise. And as she fell asleep between us, I stared at the ceiling thinking. Tomorrow, I would sit in a courtroom across from the people who raised me, and I would choose my daughter over their pride in front of everyone. The morning of the hearing, Chicago looked like it was holding its breath. Gray sky, wet streets, the kind of cold that doesn't bite. It presses like the city's palm against your chest. Imani drove because my hands wouldn't stop shaking. Not because I was scared of court, because I was about to sit across from the people who raised me and say, out loud, in front of strangers, you don't get access to my child. And I knew what that meant in their language. It meant war. We dropped Lena off at school like it was a normal day, like the world wasn't about to tilt. She hugged Imani tight, then hugged me. She whispered into my jacket. I always will, I whispered back. Then we drove downtown. The courthouse lobby smelled like metal detectors and old paper. Everyone looked tired. Everyone looked like they were carrying something heavy. Custody fights, eviction notices, protective orders, the messy math of human lives. My lawyer met us near a bench by the elevators. She wore a simple suit and carried a thin folder like it weighed nothing, like she'd done this 1,000 times. You ready? She asked. Imani nodded once. I swallowed, as ready as I can be. My lawyer's eyes were calm. Remember, they'll perform. Don't bite. Imani's mouth tightened. I won't. But I could tell Imani wasn't here to be polite. She was here to protect. We stepped into the elevator. As the doors closed, I saw a reflection of myself in the metal. Shoulders stiff, eyes darker than usual, jaw clenched like a lock. I didn't look like the 22-year-old kid who begged for crumbs. I looked like a father. We got to the courtroom hallway first. 10 minutes later, they arrived like a parade. My father walked in front, coat crisp, posture rigid, face set like stone. My mother followed, pearls at her throat, a soft scarf draped carefully as if she was auditioning for tragic grandmother. Her eyes were already shiny with tears she hadn't earned yet. Hannah came next, hair perfect, lipstick flawless, looking more like she was heading to brunch than a hearing. Caleb trailed behind, hands in pockets, expression bored but eyes sharp. And behind them, 2 aunts. Backup, witnesses, a chorus. When my mother saw me, she stopped walking and pressed a hand to her chest like she might faint. Oh, Ethan, she whispered loudly. Look at you. My father didn't speak to me at first. He stared through me. Hannah smiled a little, the kind of smile that says I'm going to enjoy this. Imani's hand slid into mine, gripped tight. My mother turned her gaze to Imani and, without missing a beat, looked past her like she wasn't there. Then my mother looked at my lawyer and said, sweetly, We don't understand why it had to come to this. My lawyer nodded politely, like she was listening to weather. Then she said, "Good morning. Please don't speak to my clients." My father's jaw twitched. "We're not criminals," my mother said softly, offended. "We're family." My lawyer's voice stayed calm. "Your respondents. Please keep distance." My mother blinked like she couldn't believe she'd been labeled. Respondents. As if she wasn't the main character. Hannah leaned toward my mother and murmured, loud enough for me to hear, "He's really letting her do this." Her. Not Imani's name. Not my lawyer's name. Just her, like women were interchangeable tools in my rebellion. I didn't respond, but my stomach went cold. Because if Hannah was still talking like that in a courthouse hallway, it meant she came prepared to lie with confidence. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. No dramatic wooden walls like TV. Just fluorescent lights, a judge's bench, rows of seats that creaked when people shifted their weight. We took our place at one table. My parents and siblings took the other. For a moment, the sight of them lined up like that, across from me, made my brain flash backward to childhood. Sunday dinners, report cards, my dad's silent disappointment, my mom's careful image making, Hannah's sharp comments that always landed under the belt, Caleb's lazy cruelty, and in the center of it all me, trying to be good. Then the bailiff called the case. The judge entered. A woman in her late 50s, hair pulled back, eyes steady and tired in the way people get when they've seen every kind of human excuse. She looked over the paperwork. Then she looked up. "All right," she said. "This is a petition for a protective order concerning a minor child." My throat tightened. Imani's posture straightened. The judge's gaze moved to my parents. "Respondents," she said, voice flat. "Do you understand why we're here?" My mother inhaled and stepped in her role. "Yes, Your Honor," she said softly, voice trembling. "We are heartbroken." The judge didn't react. Heartbroken isn't a legal position. My mother's eyes widened slightly. Hannah's smile flickered. My father leaned forward. "Your Honor," the judge held up a hand. "I will hear from the petitioner first." My lawyer stood. She spoke clearly, calmly. No drama, no exaggeration. Just facts. "Your Honor," she began, "Mr. Park and Mrs. Brooks Park are requesting protection for their minor child due to repeated harassment, unwanted contact attempts, and harmful statements made by the respondents, despite written notices to cease." My lawyer handed the clerk the evidence packet. Then she outlined the timeline. Pregnancy announcement and family ostracism. No contact during childbirth. Refusal of help during medical crisis. Direct contact attempts with the minor via social media. Approaches to the minor's school. A verbal incident at a school event. Defamatory rumors causing harm to the child. Trespass at Mr. Park's office and intimidation. I watched my mother's face as those words filled the room. She didn't look remorseful. She looked offended, like the truth was rude. When my lawyer finished, the judge looked at my parents. "Respondents," she said, "your turn." My father stood first. He didn't look at the judge at first. He looked at me, like this was between us, like court was just a stage. "My son is being manipulated," he said, "by outside influences." Outside influences. Imani's jaw tightened. The judge's eyes narrowed. Outside influences? My father nodded. He was raised with values. Family values. Respect. But he has changed. The judge's voice stayed dry. People can change. That's not illegal. My father's mouth tightened. "We have never harmed the child," he said. "We simply want a relationship with our granddaughter." My mother stood next, clutching her scarf like she was auditioning again. "I cry every night," she whispered. "I just want to hold her. We are her family." The judge tilted her head slightly. "Have you had an existing relationship with this child?" she asked. My mother hesitated. Hannah jumped in quickly. "We tried. Ethan blocked us. He's been keeping her from us." The judge's eyes moved to Hannah. "Were you instructed to stop contacting the minor child?" Hannah blinked, too innocent. "We were told not to harass." "We weren't harassing." The judge looked down at the paperwork. "I have a copy of a cease and desist letter," she said, voice firm. "It specifically instructs you not to contact the child." Hannah's face tightened. My mother inhaled sharply. "That letter was cruel," my mother said. "It was like being stabbed." The judge didn't blink. "Did you contact the child after receiving it?" she asked. Hannah opened her mouth. My lawyer stood immediately. Your Honor, she said, we have screenshots of messages sent to the minor child, time-stamped after the letter was delivered. The judge held out her hand. Give them to me. My lawyer handed over the pages. The courtroom got very quiet. The judge read, and I watched my mother's face change, just slightly, as she realized the judge wasn't going to skim and move on. The judge was actually reading. The judge looked up. Hannah Park, she said, did you send these messages? Hannah's voice came out thin. I was trying to connect. The judge's gaze sharpened. And did you write, quote, your grandma cries because she misses you? Hannah swallowed. Yes. And did you write, quote, you should come meet everyone? Hannah nodded, smaller. Yes. The judge leaned back. You contacted a minor directly, she said, despite written notice not to. Hannah's cheeks flushed. My mother stepped forward quickly. Your Honor, she said, voice trembling. We were desperate. He erased us. The judge's voice turned colder. You do not use desperation as permission to ignore boundaries with a child. My father's jaw flexed. My mother's tears threatened to fall again, but I could see the anger underneath. Rage that she was being corrected. Then the judge said the sentence that shifted everything. I also have a school incident report. My stomach tightened. My mother froze. The judge looked at my mother. Did you approach the child's school? She asked. My mother's lips parted. I attended a school event. That wasn't the question, the judge said. My mother's voice rose slightly. We had a right to be there. The judge cut her off. Do not argue with me. Did you go to the school and attempt to obtain information about the child? My mother's eyes flicked to Hannah. Hannah looked away. My mother swallowed. I may have asked. The judge's expression hardened. Yes or no? My mother's voice came out small. Yes. Imani inhaled sharply beside me. The judge turned to my father. And did you trespass at Mr. Park's office and refuse to leave? My father lifted his chin. I was trying to speak to my son. The judge's tone sharpened. Did you refuse to leave? My father's mouth tightened. Yes. The judge nodded slowly, then looked down at another sheet. And now we get to the part that concerns me most. My heart started pounding. The judge's eyes lifted. This child, she said, voice firm, came home from school in tears after another child told her she was a mistake and that she ruined the family's reputation. My mother's face went pale. Hannah's eyes widened. Caleb sat up for the first time, suddenly alert. The judge leaned forward. Who said that? My mother whispered, horrified. Not at the harm, but at the exposure. The judge held up a hand. Not relevant. What's relevant is that the statement exists and it reached the child. My father's voice rose, indignant. That is not something we would ever. The judge looked directly at him. Do you understand, she said, what it does to a child to be labeled like that? My father's mouth opened. No sound came out. The judge continued, voice steady but heavy. You are adults. Your pride does not outrank a child's mental health. My mother's tears finally fell. Real or not, they landed the same. We didn't mean it, she whispered. The judge's eyes didn't soften. It doesn't matter what you meant, she said. It matters what you did. My lawyer nudged me gently. Your Honor, she said, Mr. Park would like to address the court. My throat tightened. I stood. I looked at the judge. Then I looked at my parents. And in that second, I saw two versions of my life. One where I kept begging for crumbs for approval for a softer voice. And the life I had now, built with Imani, held together by love and bruised hope and relentless effort. I swallowed hard. Your Honor, I said, voice rough. I'm not here because I hate my parents. My mother's head snapped up, eyes bright with tears. I continued. I'm here because my daughter asked me if she was a mistake, I said, and my voice nearly cracked. She asked because something my family said got into her school. My father stared straight ahead, jaw clenched. My mother's lips trembled. My family didn't answer the phone when my daughter had pneumonia, I said quietly. My mother hung up on me. My father refused to help. That was their choice. I felt Imani's hand press against my back like support. And when we built a life anyway, I continued. They came back, not with apologies, with demands, with guilt, with threats. I turned my eyes to the judge. I'm asking you, I said, voice steady now, to protect my child from being used as a bargaining chip. She's not a tool for their pride. She's not a way to save their reputation. My mother made a small sound, like she wanted to interrupt. I didn't look at her. She deserves to grow up warm, I said. Not afraid, not confused, not carrying adult shame. I sat down. My hands were shaking, but my spine felt lighter. The judge sat in silence for a long moment, reading through the documents again. My stomach churned. My mother sniffled dramatically. My father stared at the bench like he could intimidate it. Finally, the judge spoke. This court's priority, she said, is the safety and well-being of the minor child. She looked directly at my parents. Based on the evidence provided, direct contact attempts with a minor, school approach, trespass and intimidation, and harmful statements reaching the child, I am granting a protective order. My chest loosened slightly, like air finally reached my lungs. Imani exhaled shakily. My mother's face contorted. My father's jaw clenched so hard I thought it might break. The judge continued, crisp and clear. Respondents are to have no direct or indirect contact with the minor child. No contact through social media. No contact through school events. No contact through third parties. They are not to approach the child's school or the petitioner's place of business. Any violation will carry consequences. My mother let out a sob. This is cruel, she whispered. The judge didn't blink. This is protection, she said. Hannah's face went bright red. You can't do this, Hannah snapped, losing her mask. She's our blood. The judge's eyes turned sharp. Your behavior, she said, is why I'm doing this. My father stood abruptly, voice rising. This is outrageous, he barked. He's my son. The bailiff shifted. The judge's tone went ice cold. Sit down, she said. My father hesitated, then sat, but the rage in his eyes was a living thing. The judge looked at him. You are not entitled to someone's child, she said. Not because of blood, not because of pride, not because of control. And she looked at me and Imani. I suggest you continue documenting, she said. If you need further protections, return. She tapped her pen once. We're done. The moment we stepped into the hallway, my mother lunged toward me like the cameras were rolling. How could you do this? She cried, voice high. How could you punish your own mother? My lawyer stepped between us instantly. Do not approach, she warned. My mother stopped short, trembling, rage disguised as grief. You're destroying the family, my mother hissed. Imani's voice went quiet and deadly. You destroyed it, she said, when you hung up on your granddaughter's life. My mother's face twisted like she'd been slapped. My father moved toward us, eyes blazing. You think this is over? He said. My lawyer raised a hand. Sir, she said, you are now under a protective order. Any further threats will be documented. My father leaned in any way, voice low like poison. You will come crawling back, he whispered to me. I met his eyes, and I said the sentence that finally cut the last cord. I'd rather crawl through glass than hand my daughter to you, I said calmly. My father's face went rigid. Then Hannah screamed, voice raw now, mask on. You're choosing her over us. Imani didn't flinch. Yes, she said. That's what a father does. Caleb muttered something nasty under his breath. My lawyer guided us away. As we walked toward the elevators, I heard my mother sobbing behind us, performing for anyone who would listen. And my father? My father wasn't crying. He was quiet. And quiet from him was always the warning before the storm. Outside, the air was brutal and clean. Chicago wind slapped my face like reality. Imani stood on the courthouse steps, eyes shining with tears she didn't wipe away. We did it, she whispered. I nodded slowly, still stunned. We did, I said. Imani exhaled shakily. I feel lighter, she said. I looked at her. I'm sorry, I said suddenly. Imani blinked. For what? Forever thinking I needed them, I said, voice cracking. Forever letting them treat you like a complication. Imani's eyes softened. Ethan, she said quietly, we survived them. That's what matters. We got in the car. On the way to pick up Lena, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. One line. This protective order won't stop us. Blood wins. My stomach dropped. Imani read it and went still. Screenshot, she said. I did. Then I blocked the number. But my heart was pounding. Because the judge had given us protection. And my father had promised retaliation. And now we had proof that he wasn't done trying to reach through the walls. When we picked Lena up from school, she ran to the car and climbed into the back seat like she'd been holding her breath all day. Imani turned around, smiling gently. "Hey, baby," she said. "How was your day?" Lena shrugged. "Okay." Then her eyes searched ours. "Did you do the thing?" she asked quietly. My throat tightened. "Yes," I said softly. "We did." Lena blinked. "So, well, they can't come to school anymore." I nodded. "They're not allowed to," I said. "And if they try, we handle it." Lena sat very still. Then she whispered, "Good." Her shoulders dropped in a way that broke my heart, like a kid finally putting down a backpack she didn't realize she'd been carrying. Imani reached back and squeezed Lena's knee gently. "You're safe," she whispered. Lena's eyes got shiny. "I pick warm," Lena said again, and this time her voice wasn't shaky. It was certain. I looked at Imani. We both smiled through tears. Because whatever storm my father thought he could bring, he was too late. Our daughter had already chosen. That unknown number text sat in my phone like a live wire. "This order won't stop us. Blood wins." It wasn't just a threat. It was a belief. The kind of belief that turns people into hurricanes, because hurricanes don't think they're doing wrong. Hurricanes think they're doing what nature intended. Imani watched me block the number and set my phone face down on the center console like we were putting a lid on something poisonous. "Screenshot saved?" she asked. "Saved," I said. She nodded. "Good." Then she turned around and looked at Lena through the gap between the seats, voice light on purpose. "Hey, superstar," she said. "Want to pick dinner?" "Your choice." Lena sniffed and wiped her cheeks with her sleeve like she was embarrassed by her own feelings. "Tacos," she said, small smile appearing. Imani smiled back. "Tacos it is." And as we drove through the Chicago streets, past corner stores and bus stops and the glow of a taqueria sign, I felt something strange, relief. Not because I thought the war was over, but because I finally understood the battlefield. We weren't fighting for family. We were fighting for access. And the court had just told them, in plain legal language, access denied. The only question left was how they'd react to being told no by someone with actual authority. My father had never handled no well. For 2 weeks after court, it got quiet. No surprise visits. No calls from concerned church ladies. No weird emails at the office. Nothing. It was quiet enough that my body started to believe the danger had passed. That's the thing about stress. It becomes your normal until it stops. Then when it stops, you don't feel peace. You feel suspicious. Imani and I stayed vigilant anyway. We kept Lena's accounts locked down. We kept the school updated. We saved every unknown call to voicemail without answering. We went about life, but with the subtle choreography of people who know someone is watching. Then on a Friday afternoon, my receptionist buzzed my phone with a voice that sounded too careful. "Ethan," she said, "there's a reporter on the line." My stomach dropped. "A reporter?" I repeated. "Yes," she said. "She says she's writing a piece about small businesses in Chicago, and she asked some personal questions. Like, if you're involved in a legal dispute." My fingers went cold. "Did you tell her anything?" I asked. "No," my receptionist said quickly. "I told her we don't discuss personal matters and offered to schedule a business interview." She got pushy. I closed my eyes. Hannah. This had Hannah's fingerprints all over it. Not because reporters were her style, because narratives were. She didn't want money anymore. Not directly. She wanted leverage. And leverage comes from pressure. Public pressure. I exhaled slowly. "Forward me the number," I said. "And if she calls again, tell her to email our general inbox." "Okay," my receptionist said softly. "Are you okay?" I looked at Lena's photo on my desk. Her missing tooth smile, her eyes bright, her whole face a declaration. "Yeah," I said. "I'm okay." Then I called my lawyer. And as soon as my lawyer answered, I said, "They're starting something." My lawyer didn't sound surprised. "They often escalate after a boundary holds," she said. "What do I do?" I asked. "Keep everything in writing," she said, "and prepare for public nonsense." Public nonsense. She said it like it was weather. She wasn't wrong. That evening, Imani and I tried to keep dinner normal. We ate tacos at the kitchen table. Lena told us about a new mural she'd seen on the way home. Bright blues, a giant, I painted across a brick wall like the city was watching itself. Imani laughed at Lena's impression of her teacher. I smiled. I listened. I tried to stay present. But my phone kept buzzing. Unknown numbers. Calls that hung up. Voicemails with silence. Then a text came through from a number I didn't recognize. No greeting. No name. Just a link. I didn't click it. I sent it to my lawyer. A minute later, my lawyer texted back, "Do not click. Probably bait." I set my phone down. Imani watched me. "You okay?" she asked quietly. I nodded, but my chest felt tight because I knew Hannah's pattern. Hannah didn't throw punches. She planted seeds, and then she stood back and watched other people do the punching for her. The following Tuesday, Lena's school counselor asked if she could speak with us after pickup. We walked into the counselor's office, expecting concern about Lena's feelings. We got something else. The counselor closed the door and sat down with a careful expression. "I want you to know," she said, "Lena is doing we the word help made my skin crawl. Because it sounded harmless. It sounded like care. But it was a knife aimed at our family's life." The comments were worse. People who didn't know us were eating it up like a drama series. "This is parental alienation. Call CPS. Grandparents have rights. That poor baby. That woman is evil. That woman. Imani." I felt my throat tighten so hard it hurt. Imani noticed my face immediately. "What?" she asked, reaching for the phone. I hesitated, just a second, because I didn't want her to see the cruelty. But it was already out there, so I handed it to her. Imani scrolled. Her face didn't crumple. It hardened. Lena looked up. "Mom? What is it?" Imani put the phone face down on the coffee table and smiled gently at Lena. "Nothing for you to worry about, baby," she said. Lena narrowed her eyes. "It's the other family, isn't it?" Imani froze. I swallowed hard. Lena wasn't a little kid anymore. She read our faces like weather. I sat down near her. "Yeah," I said softly. "It's them." Lena's jaw tightened. "Are they saying mean stuff again?" Imani reached out and brushed Lena's hair behind her ear. "They're saying lies," she said calmly, "and we're going to handle it." Lena's eyes got shiny, but her voice stayed firm. "I hate them," she whispered. My heart clenched. I pulled Lena closer. "You're allowed to feel that," I said, "but you don't have to carry it alone." Lena nodded into my chest. Imani stood and walked into the kitchen. I followed her. The moment we were out of Lena's earshot, Imani turned to me and said, voice low and shaking, "They put my name in strangers' mouths." I nodded, jaw tight. "They're trying to make the city turn on us," she whispered. I exhaled slowly. "They forgot something," I said. Imani looked at me. "This is Chicago," I said quietly. "People here respect receipts." Imani's eyes narrowed. "You want to fight them publicly?" she asked. I shook my head. "I want to end it," I said, "legally and cleanly." Imani nodded once. "Okay," she said. "Then we do it smart." My lawyer called within an hour. She'd already seen the post. Someone had forwarded it to her. "This is defamation and harassment," she said, "and it may violate the protective order if it encourages contact with the child." My hand shook. "What do we do?" I asked. "We respond without feeding the fire," she said. "We send a formal demand to take it down. We document everything. And if they don't comply, we go back to court." Imani stared at the wall, breathing slowly like she was containing a storm. I asked my lawyer, "Should we post anything?" My lawyer paused. "Only if you can do it with zero emotion," she said. "Facts only, and no details about the child's location or school." I looked at Imani. She nodded. So we wrote one statement. Short, clear, no drama. A protective order is in place to protect our minor child due to repeated harassment and unwanted contact attempts. We will not discuss details publicly. Any efforts to encourage third-party contact with our child will be handled legally. Then my lawyer filed a motion, and we waited, not passively, actively. We gathered evidence like we were collecting snow before a storm. Screenshots of the post. Screenshots of comments calling for CPS. Messages from people who had seen it. Any calls to the school. Everything. Then, because I'm Ethan and I build systems, I did one more thing. I created a private timeline document with timestamps and attached files. Not for the internet. For court. Because court doesn't care about vibes. Court cares about patterns. And Hannah had just laid out a very clear pattern. 2 nights later, At 9:47 p.m., someone knocked on our door. Not a polite knock. A firm, confident knock, like someone who expected to be let in. Imani froze on the couch. Lena sat up straight, eyes wide. I stood slowly, heart pounding, and walked to the door. I checked the ring camera. A woman stood on our porch. Not my mother. Not Hannah. Someone I didn't recognize. She held a clipboard and wore a neutral expression. I felt my stomach drop. This was it. The tactic behind Hannah's help language. I opened the door just enough to keep the chain on. Yes. I asked. Mr. Park, the woman said. Yes. I'm with Child Protective Services, she said calmly. We receive a report and need to do a wellness check. Imani's breath caught behind me. Lena whispered, Daddy. I kept my voice steady, polite. Okay, I said. Do you have identification? The woman nodded and held up her badge. I read it carefully. Real. My heart pounded. Okay, I said calmly. Before we proceed, I'm calling my attorney. Her expression didn't change. That's your right, she said. I turned slightly toward Imani. Call our lawyer, I whispered. Imani nodded, hands shaking as she grabbed her phone. I looked back at the CPS worker. May I ask what the report alleged? I asked. She glanced down at her clipboard. Concerns about isolation, she said. Concerns about emotional harm. Claims that family members are being blocked from seeing the child and that there may be instability in the home. I swallowed hard. Understood, I said. I want to be very clear. There's a protective order against those family members due to harassment. The school has documentation. Our lawyer will provide it. The CPS worker nodded. Okay, she said. Imani's voice shook behind me as she spoke into her phone. Yes, now. They're here. Lena's eyes were huge. Am I in trouble? She whispered. I turned and crouched beside her, keeping my voice gentle. No, baby, I said. You're not in trouble. Adults are just checking on us. We're okay. Lena swallowed. Because of the other family? She whispered. I nodded once, honest. Yeah, I said. But we're okay. Imani returned, phone still in her hand. Our lawyer is on speaker, she said. My lawyer's voice came through, calm and firm. Hello, she said. This is counsel for the family. Please state your name and case number. The CPS worker provided it. My lawyer immediately said, we will cooperate. However, we also need this documented. There is a protective order in place against specific family members who have attempted contact with a child and spread defamatory claims. The timing suggests retaliatory reporting. We will provide the order and evidence. The CPS worker listened neutral. We'll note that, she said. My lawyer continued. My clients will allow the visit. But we request that you do not speak with the child without a parent present. The CPS worker nodded. Understood. We let her in. She walked through her living room, noting it was clean, normal, lived in. Lena's art on the wall, books on a shelf, a half-finished Lego set on the coffee table. She asked questions, food, routines, school, medical care. Imani answered calmly. I answered calmly. Lena sat quietly, hugging a pillow, eyes watchful. With a CPS worker asked Lena, do you feel safe at home? Lena looked at me and Imani. Then she answered with a steadiness that made my throat tighten. Yes, Lena said. This is the warm place. The CPS worker paused, pen hovering. The warm place? She repeated. Lena nodded. My mom and dad say I can pick warm, Lena explained, voice small, but the CPS worker's eyes softened for the first time. Okay, she said gently. After about 40 minutes, she closed her folder. I don't see immediate safety concerns, she said, but I'm required to document and follow up. My lawyer's voice came through the speaker. Thank you, she said. Please include our documentation in your report. The CPS worker nodded. She stood, then looked at me carefully. I'm sorry this happened, she said quietly. Then she left. The moment the door closed, Imani's body sagged like she'd been holding herself upright with sheer will. Lena whispered, Did we do something wrong? I scooped her into my arms. No, I said, voice breaking. We did everything right. Imani stood in the doorway, tears finally spilling, but her voice was steady. They called strangers to come into our home, she whispered. Because we said no. I nodded, and something in me hardened into steel. Okay, I said quietly. Now we end it. The next morning, My lawyer filed an emergency motion. Not emotional, not dramatic, just truth. She included the viral post, the comments encouraging CPS, the timing, the CPS visit report request, the protective order terms, the pattern of harassment. She asked for the court to address the violation and issue further restrictions. Then she did something that surprised me. She asked for sanctions. Sanctions? I repeated when she told us. Yes, she said. Consequences. Financial penalties for abuse of process and harassment. Imani nodded fiercely. Good, she said. Make it cost. My stomach twisted because part of me still felt that old conditioning. Don't embarrass family. Don't bring outsiders in. Don't make it public. But they had already made it public. They had already sent outsiders to our door. They had already dragged Lena into it. So I let that conditioning die. 2 days later, we had a court date. Again. And this time, my mother and Hannah walked into court with their victim faces ready, until my lawyer played it like chess. She didn't argue. She presented. She showed the judge the viral post. She showed the judge the comment threads calling for CPS. She showed the judge the timeline. Then she said one sentence that dropped like a hammer. Your Honor, the respondents used third parties to reach the child and to pressure the petitioners, including a report that triggered a CPS wellness check 2 days after a public smear campaign. The judge's eyes narrowed. My mother's tears froze mid-performance. Hannah's posture stiffened. The judge looked at them. Did you file a report? The judge asked. My mother's voice trembled. We were concerned, she whispered. The judge's tone sharpened. Concern is not a weapon, she said. Did you file it? Hannah tried to jump in. We have rights. Answer. The judge cut in. My mother swallowed. I may have spoken to someone, she admitted. The judge leaned forward. You are under a protective order, she said, voice like ice. You are not permitted to contact or attempt contact with the child directly or indirectly. Encouraging investigations and third-party interference is indirect contact. My father's jaw clenched. Hannah's face flushed. The judge looked at my lawyer. What are you requesting? She asked. My lawyer's voice stayed calm. Sanctions, she said. A clear warning of contempt consequences. And an explicit no-contact provision, including third-party reporting motivated by harassment. The judge nodded slowly. Then she spoke directly to my family. You have turned this child into a battlefield, she said. I will not allow it. She issued additional clarifying restrictions. She warned them about contempt. And she imposed sanctions. Not massive, not life-ending, but enough to make it sting. Enough to make it real. My mother's face twisted. My father's eyes burned. Hannah looked like she wanted to scream. But for the first time, they were being forced to understand. This wasn't a family argument anymore. This was law, and law does not care about their pride. That should have been the end. It wasn't, because control addicts don't quit when they lose. They try one last hit. It came as a voicemail to my office line, left late at night, voice shaky and small. My grandmother. Real this time. Ethan, she whispered. It's Grandma. My breath caught. I don't have much time, she said. I want to see you. I want to see Lena. Her voice broke. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm sorry I looked away. My chest tightened. Imani listened beside me. Face unreadable. Grandma continued. Your mother says you hate us, she whispered. But I don't believe that. Please, please come. The message ended with a cough and silence. I sat still, phone in my hand, throat tight. Imani didn't speak at first. Then she said quietly, Do you believe it? I swallowed. I don't know, I admitted. Her voice sounded real. Imani nodded slowly. Okay, she said. Then we handle it carefully. We call my lawyer. My lawyer immediately said, Do not meet them alone. If you want to speak with your grandmother, we can arrange a supervised call through counsel. A supervised call. Part of me hated that it had come to this. But another part of me, the part that saw my mother's fake hospital letter, knew how necessary it was. So we did it. A call arranged through attorneys. No surprise ambush. No hallway confrontation. No drama. Just a speakerphone, a calm witness, and boundaries. Grandma's voice came through weak and trembling. Ethan, she whispered, crying softly. I'm sorry. I felt tears sting my eyes. I love you, I said quietly. But you hurt us when you looked away. I know, she whispered. I was afraid. I swallowed hard. Lena is safe, I said. She is loved. Grandma sobbed. I want to tell her I'm sorry, she whispered. Imani's voice came in, gentle but firm. We won't put Lena on this call, she said. Not yet. There was silence. Then Grandma whispered, I understand. And that was the moment I felt it. A real apology is not a demand. It's a surrender. Grandma didn't fight. She didn't manipulate. She didn't guilt trip. She accepted the boundary. I cried quietly after the call ended. Not because I wanted them back, because grief finally had a place to go. Weeks passed, then months. The smear post faded as the internet moved on to the next outrage. The CPS file closed with no concerns. The school stopped receiving calls. My office stopped getting weird emails. The system we built held. And Lena started to bloom again. She entered a citywide youth photography contest. Her series, Warm Places, won honorable mention. The judges wrote a note about her eye for resilience and emotion in urban light. She taped the note on her bedroom wall like a trophy. One night after dinner, she sat at the kitchen table and said casually, I think I know what family is. Imani looked up. Oh yeah, she asked, smiling. Lena nodded. Family is the people who don't make you feel like you have to audition, she said. I froze, because that was exactly it. Imani blinked hard, tears threatening. Where'd you get that? She asked. Lena shrugged. I don't know, she said. It's just how it feels. I reached across the table and squeezed Lena's hand. You're right, I said. Lena smiled. Good, she said, because I don't want to audition anymore. And in that moment, I realized we hadn't just protected Lena from them. We'd protected Lena from becoming like them. From learning that love is conditional. From learning that approval is something you earn by shrinking. She was learning something else, that love can be a home. A year after the courtroom rulings, I got one last message from an unknown number. I didn't open it right away. I sent it to my lawyer. My lawyer replied, It's your father. The message read, I hope you're happy. Just that. No apology. No accountability. A final attempt to make me feel guilty for choosing my child. I stared at the words for a long time. Then I deleted them. And I didn't feel anything. Not anger. Not sadness. Just emptiness where their control used to live. I looked up and saw Lena in the living room showing Imani a new photo she'd taken. Lake Michigan at sunset, the water glowing like molten gold. Imani laughed, proud. Lena beamed. Warm. That was the truth of our life. That was the only truth that mattered. So I turned my phone off, walked into the living room, and sat with my family. The real one. The year after the court orders, life started to feel almost normal again. Not easy. Chicago never really does easy, but normal in the way your shoulders stop living up around your ears. Normal in the way the front door doesn't feel like a threat. Normal in the way you can laugh without checking your phone every 5 minutes. Lena turned 12, then 13. Her voice changed first, deeper, steadier, like her body was preparing her to speak up in a world that loves to silence girls. Taller, stronger, more opinionated. Good. I wanted her opinionated. I wanted her to grow into the kind of person my family couldn't bend. She carried her camera everywhere now, slung across her chest like armor. She photographed the city like she was documenting proof that beauty can survive in hard places. Lakefront light, train tracks, murals, hands passing food through a window at a late-night taco stand. One afternoon, she came home and taped a new photo on the fridge. It was the Chicago skyline at dusk, the buildings outlined in purple and gold. At the bottom of the photo, she'd written in black marker, "Warm lives here." Imani stared at it for a long time, then kissed the top of Lena's head. "You're going to be dangerous," she said softly. Lena grinned. "I already am." And I thought, maybe we made it. Maybe the worst was behind us. Then, one Tuesday morning, my lawyer called. "Ethan," she said, voice careful, "I need you to sit down." I did. Imani looked at my face and knew immediately something had shifted. "What is it?" she asked. My lawyer exhaled. "Your grandmother passed," she said. For a second, I didn't understand the words. Passed. My grandmother, small hands, warm cardigan, soft voice, the same woman who once slipped me candy when my father wasn't looking, was gone. And even though grief was complicated, because she'd also looked away, something in my chest cracked open anyway. Imani sat beside me, quietly. My lawyer continued. There's more. I swallowed hard. There's a will, she said, and your family is using it. My stomach tightened. Ow, I asked. My lawyer's voice went flat. They're claiming your grandmother left something for Lena. They're requesting a meeting, and they're framing it as closure and family healing. Imani's eyes narrowed. Trap, she said. My lawyer didn't disagree. It might be legitimate, she said, but the way they're moving, it feels strategic. I stared at the wall. The last time my mother claimed a hospital visit, it was a lure. The last time my family wanted dinner, it was a tribunal. Now they wanted closure. Closure, in my mother's vocabulary, meant come back under the roof. Let's reset the power. Imani's voice was steady, but tight. What do we do? She asked. My lawyer said, we verify everything independently. If there's anything for Lena, it will be handled through counsel. No in-person family meeting. Imani nodded. Good. I didn't speak. My throat felt thick because grief was pulling me one way and survival was pulling me the other. And I learned the hard way. Grief can be used as bait. The next day, a package arrived. No return address. But I recognized my mother's handwriting instantly, sharp, angled, like every letter had been disciplined. Inside was a black dress. Not for Imani, for Lena. A teen-sized black dress folded neatly, with a small note taped on top, for the funeral. She should look proper. Grandma would want that. My hands went cold. Imani stared at the dress like it was a snake. Lena walked in from school, camera around her neck, and froze when she saw it. What's that? She asked cautiously. I swallowed hard. It's for my mother, I said. Lena's face tightened. Why? She asked. Imani's voice stayed calm. They want you at a funeral. Lena's eyes widened. Who died? She asked, voice soft. My chest clenched. My grandmother, I said. Lena's mouth parted. She'd never met Grandma. Not really. Not in any warm, safe way. But she knew the word grandmother carried gravity. Oh, Lena whispered. Then she looked at the dress again. And they sent me that? She asked. Yes, I said. Lena's jaw tightened, anger flickering beneath sadness. That's weird, she muttered. They don't even know me. Imani reached out and squeezed Lena's shoulder. They're trying to pull you into their story, she said gently. Lena stared at the dress for a long time. Then she surprised me. I want to go, she said quietly. Imani and I both froze. Lena, I started. Lena lifted her chin. I don't want them, she said quickly. I want to say goodbye. If she was your grandma, she mattered. My throat tightened. Imani's eyes softened, but her voice stayed firm. Baby, she said, saying goodbye is okay. But funerals are where your dad's family performs. They may try to corner you. Lena swallowed. I'm not little anymore, she said, voice shaking slightly but steady. I can handle it. I looked at my daughter and saw the truth. She wasn't little anymore. And protecting her now couldn't mean hiding everything. Protecting her now meant teaching her how to stand in a storm. Imani looked at me. I looked back. We didn't need words to agree. If we did this, we did it our way. Not theirs. That night, we sat at the kitchen table like it was a planning room. Not because we wanted drama. Because we refused to be surprised. I laid out the rules gently, clearly, like I was teaching Lena how to cross a busy street. We'll go, I said. But we don't go alone. Your aunt and grandma don't get to separate you. You stay within arm's reach of us at all times. Lena nodded. Imani added, no private conversations. If anyone asks to talk somewhere quiet, the answer is no. Lena nodded again, eyes serious. And I said, voice quiet, if at any point you feel your stomach go cold, you tell us and we leave. Immediately. No debate. Lena swallowed. Okay, she said. Imani leaned in. This isn't about being polite, she said. This is about being safe. Lena nodded, gripping her water bottle like a grounding object. What if they cry? Lena asked. Imani's voice softened. Then we remember. Crying doesn't equal change. Lena looked at me. What if they say sorry? My throat tightened. If they say sorry, I said carefully, we listen. But we don't give access because of words. Access comes from behavior. Lena nodded slowly like she was absorbing a new law of physics. Then she said, I want to bring my camera. Imani blinked. To a funeral? Lena shrugged. Not to take pictures of people. Just, I feel safer with it. I understood that immediately. Some kids hold a stuffed animal. Lena held a lens. Bring it, I said. And we all sat there in the quiet Chicago kitchen, knowing we were about to walk into a room full of ghosts, some real, some emotional. The funeral was at the same church where Pastor Kim once called me about reputation. Of course it was. The building looked exactly the same, brick exterior, modest cross, the smell of old carpet and strong coffee inside. My stomach tightened as we walked in. Lena held Imani's hand on one side and stayed close to me on the other. People turned to look. Whispers traveled like wind. There he is. That's the son. That's the wife. That's the girl. Lena's shoulders stiffened. I felt it. I leaned down slightly and whispered, warm. Lena inhaled, then nodded. We moved toward the back pews, far from the front where my family clustered like they owned the air. My father stood near the front, suit immaculate, face rigid. My mother sat beside him, dabbing her eyes with a tissue like she was filming a scene. Hannah stood close, hugging people, accepting condolences like she was the spokesperson for grief. Caleb lurked near the side, hands in pockets, eyes sharp. And then my mother saw Lena. The performance on my mother's face changed instantly. Tears paused, eyes widened. A smile appeared, trembling and grand. She stood abruptly, as if pulled by an invisible string, and began walking toward us. My heart hammered. Imani's posture tightened. Lena went still. My mother stopped a few feet away, hands clasped like prayer, voice shaking loud enough for nearby people to hear. Oh, she whispered, you're so beautiful. Lena didn't respond. My mother stepped closer. I'm your grandmother, she said. And there it was, the claim. Imani's voice stayed calm but firm. Stop, she said. There's a court order. My mother blinked like she'd forgotten laws existed. This is a funeral, she whispered, scandalized. We're not doing this here. I stared at her. You're the one doing it, I said quietly. My mother's eyes flicked to Lena again. I just want to hug her, she whispered. Lena's voice came out small but clear. I don't want to hug. My mother froze. That sentence, simple, calm, was something my mother couldn't handle because it wasn't emotional. It wasn't dramatic. It was a boundary. Hannah stepped in quickly, smiling. Sweetie, Hannah said, voice warm like honey. It's okay. We're family. Lena's eyes narrowed slightly, and I saw Imani's strength in her. I'm not your sweetie, Lena said quietly. You don't know me. Hannah's smile cracked. My mother's face tightened. The people around us went silent, sensing the tension. My father started walking toward us, jaw clenched. You couldn't behave for one day, he hissed at me under his breath. I stared at him. This isn't about behavior, I said. This is about boundaries. My father's eyes flashed. Then he looked at Lena. For the first time in her life, my father looked directly at my daughter. His expression softened, just slightly, but it wasn't love. It was calculation. Lena, he said, voice controlled, we are sorry. Lena didn't flinch. Sorry for what? She asked. My father's mouth tightened. He hadn't expected a question. He'd expected a child to melt. Hannah jumped in quick. For everything, she said vaguely. Lena's voice stayed steady. My dad said you didn't answer when I was sick, Lena said. Is that true? The air changed. My mother's face went pale. My father's jaw clenched. Imani's hand tightened around Lena's. Hannah's eyes darted, and I realized my daughter had brought the truth into the room like a flashlight. Hannah forced a laugh. That's adult stuff, she said. You don't need to worry about it. Lena stared at her. It is my stuff, Lena said quietly. It's my life. I felt pride swell in my chest like a wave. My father's voice went sharp. Enough, he snapped. This is a funeral. I looked around at the watching eyes. I leaned down toward Lena. You did nothing wrong, I whispered. Lena nodded. Then she surprised me again. She turned slightly toward the front, toward the casket. I want to say goodbye, she said quietly. My mother inhaled sharply, as if she'd won something. Yes, she whispered. Yes, of course. Imani's gaze went hard. Not with you, she said. And without another word, Imani guided Lena forward, with me on the other side, like a protective frame around her. We walked up together. We stood by the casket. Lena looked down, her face softening with something she couldn't name. Grief for a woman she'd never known, grief for a family she'd never had. She didn't cry. She just whispered, "I'm sorry you were scared." Then she stepped back, and in that moment, I saw something that hit me hard. Lena had more compassion for my grandmother than my mother had ever shown for Lena. We returned to the back pews. We sat, and we stayed because Lena wanted to stay. But my body stayed on alert like a guard dog, because I knew what would come next. The church basement, the food, the private talk, the trap after the ceremony, when people relax and boundaries blur. After the service, people drifted downstairs for food. The smell of rice, soup, and coffee filled the basement. Folding tables lined the room. People murmured condolences like they were repeating a script. We moved to a corner near the exit. Imani kept Lena close. Lena sipped water, eyes scanning like she was learning the room. Then my mother approached again, this time with two aunts behind her like reinforcements. She held a folder, a thick one. My lawyer had warned me. They'll bring papers like props. My mother's voice trembled. "Ethan," she said softly, "your grandmother left something." Imani's posture stiffened. My mother held out the folder toward Lena. "It's for you," she whispered. "A gift." Lena stared at it without moving. I held up a hand. "Through counsel," I said calmly. "Anything for Lena goes through counsel." My mother's eyes flashed with anger. "This is her inheritance," she hissed. "She deserves it." Imani's voice stayed calm. "She deserves safety," she said, "and you don't get access to her because you wave money around." Hannah appeared behind my mother, eyes bright. "Ethan," she said, voice sweet, "why are you being so hostile? This is a funeral. Grandma loved family." Lena turned to Hannah, eyes steady. "Why did you call me a mistake?" Lena asked. The room went silent. Not everyone heard the exact words, but they heard the tone, that sudden sharpness that makes adults pay attention. Hannah's face drained of color. "I didn't," Hannah started. Lena didn't raise her voice. She didn't get dramatic. She just stood there, 13 years old, and said, "A girl at my school said my grandma told her mom that I ruined your reputation." My mother's eyes widened, horrified, not at the harm, but the fact that Lena was saying it out loud. Hannah's mouth opened, then closed. Caleb, who'd been lingering nearby, muttered, "Jesus." Imani stepped closer to Lena, grounding. My mother's voice went sharp. "Who told you that?" she snapped at Lena. Lena blinked. Then she said something that made my heart swell. "My mom and dad told me not to audition," Lena said quietly. "So I'm not." The adults around us looked confused. Lena continued, voice steady. "I don't want your money," she said. "I want you to stop talking about me." Hannah's eyes flashed with fury and embarrassment. "You don't understand," Hannah snapped. "Adults, stop," I said, voice low. My mother's face twisted. "How dare you turn her against us?" she hissed at Imani. Imani didn't blink. "You did it yourselves," she said softly, "with your absence." My mother's hands shook around the folder. "You're stealing from her," she whispered. "That money is hers." I stared at the folder. "Fine," I said. "Give it to my lawyer." My mother's eyes narrowed. "No," she said. "I want Lena to have it now. I want her to know Grandma loved her." I felt the trap snap into focus. If Lena took the folder from my mother's hands, my mother would claim contact and reconciliation. A photo would appear online. Grandma's gift to Lena. Family healing. Ethan finally softened, and the protective order would become harder to enforce because Lena accepted. I leaned down toward Lena. "Do you want it?" I asked softly. "It's your choice." Lena looked at the folder for a long beat. Then she stepped back slightly and said quietly, "I don't want anything from people who call me a mistake." My mother's face contorted. Hannah's eyes went wide with rage. And I realized the truth. They hadn't come to give Lena something. They'd come to force a photo, a symbol, a wedge. Lena refused to be a symbol. And my family, my old family, didn't know what to do with a child who wouldn't play her part. My mother's voice rose, sharp. "You're ungrateful," she snapped at Lena. That was the line. The moment my mother crossed from manipulation into direct harm. Imani stepped forward like shield. "You will not speak to our child," she said, voice cold. My father appeared, eyes blazing. "This is enough," he barked. "We will not be disrespected by a child." Lena's hands trembled, but she didn't shrink. She looked up at my father and said quietly, "I'm not disrespecting you. I'm protecting myself." My father froze because he didn't know what to do with that language. Protecting myself. That's therapy language. Boundary language. It's the language of people who refuse to be controlled. And it terrified him. Imani touched my arm. "We're leaving," she whispered. I nodded. We walked out of the basement. Not running. Not yelling. Just leaving. Because leaving is what power looks like when you don't need to win a room. We didn't go home right away. We drove to the lakefront. Because water is where you go when you need your nervous system to remember the world is bigger than one family's dysfunction. We parked near Montrose Harbor. The wind off the lake was sharp, clean, honest. Lena stood by the railing, camera hanging at her chest, staring out at the gray-blue water. Imani stood beside her, hand resting lightly on Lena's shoulder. I stayed a step back, letting Lena breathe. After a long silence, Lena spoke. "I thought I'd feel something," she said quietly. Imani's voice was soft. "What kind of something?" Lena shrugged, eyes on the waves. "Like love," she said. "Like they'd see me and it would click. Like they'd change." My throat tightened. Imani nodded slowly. "That's a normal hope," she said. "But hope doesn't force people to be good." Lena swallowed hard. "I don't think they can," Lena whispered. I stepped closer. "Some people can't be safe," I said gently. "Not because you're unlovable. Because they're broken in a way they refuse to fix." Lena's eyes got shiny. Imani pulled Lena into a hug. Lena's voice cracked. "I'm glad you kept me away," she whispered. That sentence hit me like a wave. I wrapped my arms around both of them. "I'm sorry you had to learn it this way," I whispered. Lena sniffed. "I pick warm," she said into Imani's shoulder. Imani kissed her hair. "Always," she whispered. And as the three of us stood there with Chicago wind whipping our coats, I felt something settle. Not closure. Something better. Acceptance. 2 weeks after the funeral, my lawyer called again. "The will is real," she said. My stomach tightened. And I asked. "There is an inheritance," she said. "But it's structured." Imani's eyes narrowed. "How structured?" My lawyer's tone went flat. "A trust," she said. "And your father is listed as the trustee." I felt my stomach drop. Of course he was. My father didn't want Lena to have money. He wanted Lena to have a leash. My lawyer continued. "The trust releases money for education expenses and family enrichment. It's vague, which means the trustee has discretion." Imani's voice went cold. "Discretion means control." "Yes," my lawyer said simply. I stared at the wall. So that was the game. Not reconciliation. Not grief. A financial mechanism designed to force contact. My lawyer said, "We have options. We can petition to replace the trustee. We can also refuse the trust entirely. But that's a personal decision." I looked at Lena across the room. She was at the table editing photos on her laptop, headphones on, tapping away like the world couldn't touch her. But the world could, and it had. I walked over and sat across from her. "Hey," I said gently. Lena pulled one headphone off. "What's up?" I chose my words carefully. "Great-grandma left you something," I said. "Money for school." Lena blinked. "Like for college?" "Yes," I said. Her eyes brightened for half a second. Then she frowned. "But it's them, isn't it?" I nodded. Lena stared at her laptop screen, jaw tight. "So it's not a gift," she said quietly. "It's a string." Imani sat beside Lena. "It's a leash," Imani said softly. Lena's face hardened. "I don't want it," she said immediately. My throat tightened. "Are you sure?" I asked, even though part of me was proud. Lena didn't hesitate. "I don't want money that comes with people who make my stomach cold," she said. "I'd rather work." I felt my chest ache, pride and grief tangled together. Imani's eyes shone. "Baby," she whispered, "you don't have to suffer to prove a point." Lena shrugged, stubborn. "I'm not trying to prove a point," she said. "I'm trying to stay warm." That was Lena. Simple, wise, unbending. I swallowed hard. "Okay," I said. "Then we do it your way." My lawyer petitioned to replace the trustee. We requested the trust be handled by a neutral third party or released into a structure with no family involvement. My father responded exactly how you'd expect. He refused. He claimed Lena needed guidance. He claimed Imani was manipulating. He claimed I was mentally unstable. He tried to drag us back into the old story. But this time we had court orders. We had documentation. And we had something else, a daughter old enough to speak. The hearing about the trust wasn't as dramatic as the protective order hearing, but it was sharper because money makes people reveal themselves. My father sat in court with that same rigid posture, eyes full of righteous entitlement. My mother sat beside him, tissue in hand, ready to perform. Hannah sat behind them, arms crossed, face hard. Caleb didn't bother showing up. The judge this time was a different one, older, with a voice that sounded like gravel and experience. He listened as my lawyer explained the conflict of interest. Trustee using money as leverage for contact, history of harassment, protective order. Then he looked at my father. "Sir," he said, "are you willing to serve as trustee without seeking contact with the child?" My father's jaw tightened. "I am her family," he said. The judge's eyes narrowed. "That wasn't my question," he said. My father hesitated, then said, "She needs to know her family." The judge leaned forward. "Are you willing," he said slowly, "to administer the trust without attempting contact?" My father's face hardened. "No," he said, "because it's my right to guide her." The judge blinked once, like he couldn't believe my father had said it that plainly. Then the judge looked at my lawyer. "That answers it," he said. My mother gasped, dramatic. "You can't take this away," she whispered. The judge didn't look at her. He looked at my father. "This child is not your possession," he said. My father's face went red. Then the judge made his ruling. A neutral third-party trustee would manage the trust. No family control. No discretionary family enrichment loopholes. Money used strictly for verified education expenses. And if the family attempted contact or tried to use funds as leverage, the court would reevaluate the structure entirely. My father's face looked like it had cracked. My mother whispered, "This is cruel." The judge didn't blink. "This is protection," he said. Sound familiar? It did to me. It sounded like the universe finally learning my mother's language and speaking it back. Outside the courtroom, my father tried one last time. He stepped toward Lena. Yes, Lena was there this time, because she wanted to be. She stood beside Imani, shoulders squared, camera strap across her chest like she'd come prepared to document truth. My father's voice went low. "Lena," he said, "you're making a mistake." Lena looked at him, calm, steady, not afraid. "I know what mistakes feel like," Lena said quietly. My father blinked. Lena continued, voice even. "Mistakes don't feel warm," she said. "You don't feel warm." My father's face twisted, furious. Hannah lunged in, voice sharp. "You're a child," she snapped. "You don't understand." Lena didn't raise her voice. She didn't cry. She just said the sentence that ended it. "I'm not auditioning for your love." Silence. Even my mother stopped breathing for a second, because Lena had named the whole system in one line. My father's mouth opened. No words came out. Imani's hand tightened around Lena's. I felt tears sting my eyes. Not because it was sad, because it was freeing. Lena turned away without waiting for permission, and we walked out together. That night, Lena asked to go to Navy Pier. Not because she wanted rides, because she wanted the skyline. We went after dinner, bundled up, wind cutting through layers like Chicago always does. We stood near the railing, the city lit up behind us like a crown. Lena held her camera up and snapped a photo, then lowered it and looked at me. "Dad," she said. "Yeah." I said, "I think. I'm okay now," she said quietly. My throat tightened. "Okay, how?" I asked. Lena shrugged. "Like, I don't have to wonder anymore," she said. "I don't have to hope they'll become warm." Imani's eyes shone in the pier lights. Lena continued, voice soft. "I used to think family was like a club you're born into," she said. "And if they don't want you, you must be wrong." I swallowed hard. Lena looked up at the skyline again. "But it's not that," she said. "Family is who builds warmth with you." Imani smiled through tears. "Yes," she whispered. "That's it." Lena turned to me. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" I asked, voice rough. "For not making me audition," she said. I pulled her into a hug, so tight she squeaked. Imani wrapped her arms around both of us. And we stood there, three people on the edge of Lake Michigan. The wind tried to push us around, but not moving us. Because warmth isn't a place. It's a practice. And we practiced it into permanence. If you've ever had to protect your peace from the people who share your blood, comment, I pick warm. And if you want more survival and justice stories where boundaries win, like subscribe and hit play on the next one, because the next betrayal starts with a family favor and ends with someone losing everything.